Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that covers Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and TV shows. I'm your host, the real cinch Neal Lynch. On today's episode, we're going to be reacting to the Giants firing head coach Brian Daboll. We'll recap the loss to the Bears that caused Brian Daboll's firing in Week 10, and we'll preview the upcoming Packers game in Week 11. Without further ado, let's get it started up in here. Okay, the time has finally come. Brian Daboll has been fired by the New York Giants. In my opinion, this has been long overdue. Anyone who's still defending Brian Daboll and saying this is going to hurt Jackson Dart's development, I wish you good luck and good fortune in your future endeavors. But you can go where Brian Daboll goes now. Wherever he goes, you can tag along with him. And Drake May is a prime example of the fact that just because you came into the league with one coach and you've seen prior history dictate that your development can be hindered by poor coaching does not mean you stick with a coach who just has a losing mentality and plays cowardly football, mismanages the roster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if you've been a longtime listener and follower of this podcast, you know how out I have been on Brian Daboll. It's been dating back to the 2024 season. You know, I really the week one loss to the Vikings in the 2024 season. I was like, nope, this guy has failed on every possible level to improve our team, and claims to be an offensive guru, claims to be a quarterback whisperer, ran our potential franchise quarterback out of town, who is now an MVP candidate for the Colts, and has now significantly damaged and hurt Jackson Dart with how he's approached the game, how he's calling the game, and putting the young man's life in danger. I know that sounds dramatic, but Jesus fucking Christ, dude. What he did in this Chicago game is unforgivable, inexcusable, and unacceptable. And thankfully, thank God, praise Allah, Jeebus, whoever you turn to in times of need, the Giants made the right decision here. I don't care what anyone says about in-season firings. It's one thing to fire Brian Daboll after that Cowboys loss. That would feel maybe a bit premature. I would not have bat an eye if they fired him after that Broncos loss, because to me, that's usually it's 3 strikes and you're out. But Jesus Christ, to have that kind of monumental collapse after what happened in Dallas makes me sick. And then to come out and be absolutely inept against a 49ers team that you absolutely can beat because of their injuries. Just no showing against the Eagles when Scat goes down, and then you're up 10 points again in the fourth quarter. You risk you Dart goes down. We'll get into it. I'm sorry. I'm very overly highly caffeinated now. I am so wired because I got 0 sleep last night. 0 sleep because I'm just laying in bed staring at the ceiling and I'm saying, I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe that we are going to go through another season where we're saying the same things in every post-game press conference following a loss. We're saying the same things organizationally across the board. It literally is the definition of insanity. And to have that and to know that that's just, and we're only in week 10. We have 7 more weeks of this shit. It's like 7 more games. Like, I was just staring at the ceiling being like, wow, like the Giants really don't care. They just don't care about their fans. And it's not just fans calling out the front office and the GM and the head coach. It is the national media, the local media. It's everyone. Everyone is on board with this. It's like 90% or more are being like, how is this continuing to happen? How is this allowed to happen? So I'm very wired and caffeinated because I got 0 sleep, but this is energizing. This perked me up and woke me up to know that this organization still has some semblance of standards. Those standards have cratered over the past decade, where it's like we went from if you have a 7-9 season. I mean, do you remember in 98, 99, 95, 96, where it's like we're having 5, 6, 7, 8 win seasons and people were furious. And now we're sitting here at 2-7 for the past how many years we've started 2-7, and we're like, well, Jackson Dart. And it's like you can't point at one or two players and say that's the reason we keep a coach. That's the reason we keep a general manager. You have to look at the entire roster. While Lawrence Taylor might get a heaping pile of credit for all of his efforts and his work, and rightfully so, it's the Carl Banks of the world, the Pepper Johnsons, the Mark Collins, it's the guys that are surrounding him that are playing either to their capacity or above their capacity because of Lawrence Taylor. You kind of saw glimpses of it with Cam Scatterbo in the lineup and Jackson Dart in the lineup and Malik Neighbors in the lineup, where it's like, well, we have something here, and everyone kind of steps up. And you're not seeing that across the board, and that's, Joe Schoen is not blameless in all this. Schoen has addressed premium positions, sure. It hasn't been all hits. It's been a lot of misses, and as plenty of people have pointed out, he has some wins under his belt. Joe Schoen. They haven't translated to wins on the field, but personally, for his own sake, there are some W's. There are a lot more losses, and that comes back down to, sure, you extended AT, you extend Dex, great. Those are kind of layups. Those are things that everyone's calling for that you should just do because that's the right thing to do. It's the mismanagement of handling a lot of there's 53 players on the roster plus practice squad. Joe Schoen's management of that, Brian Daboll's management of that has been awful. Graham Gano, Exhibit A through Z. Graham Gano, the kicker situation. All right, but we're talking about Brian Daboll being fired. I said on X, this is long overdue. After going 9-7-1 in 2022, which we do get a playoff win. We finished, by the way, second or third in the division? We had the division at 7-1, 6-1, 7-2. We were leading the division. We lost the division and almost lost a playoff spot down the stretch there. People forget because we won a playoff game. 6-11, 2023, in terms of the simple rating system from Pro Football Reference, -7.9 overall, -6.9 offensively, -1.0 defensively. So the defense was a positive in 2022. It was a negative and got worse in 2023, 2024, and so far in 2025. Offensively, we got exponentially worse in 2023 and 2024, and that was due to losing Daniel Jones for an extended period of time, losing Saquon Barkley for an extended period of time, losing Andrew Thomas for an extended period of time, not retaining Saquon Barkley, not retaining Julian Love, trading away Leonard Williams, not retaining Xavier McKinney, not addressing the offensive line. There's and then we're 2-8 this year when we could very well be 6-4. And if he's 6-4, like literally, if he wins this game, he's not fired because it shows, hey, you learned your lesson. How many times have I opened this podcast and said, we're just not learning our lessons. No one is taking their medicine. No one is learning lessons. There's no accountability. You didn't learn what caused you to lose the Dallas game. You didn't learn what caused you to lose the Saints game or the Broncos game. In this game, it's just like you didn't learn. You're not learning progress, development. We're not seeing it. if you look at the team's ranks with Brian Daboll as coach, which we'll get to in a second. First, Bobby Skinner tweeted this. Brian Daboll went 20-40-1 and 11-33 over his last three seasons. He fired 2 of 3 coordinators and flip-flop play calling with the other. Replaced 5 of 9 position coaches, started 7 different, and had a winning record with none of them. At some point, the finger has to point to yourself. You have to take a look in the mirror, and you have to own up to your mistakes and say, well, why, all these coordinators not working out, all these position coaches not working out. Why? Why did you go with Shane Bowen as your defensive coordinator? Because he didn't want to have to deal with another Wink Martindale. But sometimes, you look back at a lot of the great dynasties, organizations over the course of human history, but especially with football. Do you think everyone on the Patriots organization loved each other? I bet there are guys that hated each other in that organization, but they were good at their job, and there had to be a level of respect there. It's something that hey, like, look at me, dude. I personally have struggled with relationships personally, professionally, and that's why I'm in the position I'm in now. I know after everything that I've been through that I can look at myself in the mirror and point at myself and say, you're the reason. You're the reason you're in the position you are now, and now you have to figure out a way to get out of it. So I know more than anyone to take accountability and responsibility for my failures over the course of my career, quote unquote. And it just seemed like Daboll was keen on making excuses. Not just him, but the organization has been keen on excuses, making excuses left and right, and then making it sound like they're taking accountability when they're not. So in terms of the team ranks under Brian Daboll's tenure, Giants ranked 24th or worse in most major categories for the majority of his tenure. In 2022, the offense was 26th in passing yards, 27th in net yards per pass attempt. They were limited in what they could do. It was mostly like, hey, Daniel Jones, don't turn the ball over. We're going to run Saquon, and we're going to run with you. And if you don't have the first read isn't there, take off and scramble. That was the genius development that Brian Daboll laid at Daniel Jones' feet and imposed on him. If your first read's not available, run the ball and take off. That's not developing. That's not teaching. And then if after that 2022 season, if you had moved on from Daniel Jones, okay, so 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, right? That's the 4th year. They had declined the 5th year option, I guess, before the season, right? So you already put yourself at a disadvantage. Basically, Brian Daboll came in and was like, Daniel Jones isn't the guy. He decided to put him under tremendous scrutiny in the preseason. If you remember that in the training camp, we talked about it last week. Where, has he done that with any other positions since doing that to Daniel Jones? I don't think so. At least it hasn't been made public. So it appears from the get that Daboll's not a big Daniel Jones fan. We saw him tee off on Daniel Jones in that Titans game where DJ throws the pick in the end zone, and rightfully so. It's like we have been babying Daniel Jones. So I didn't mind taking that approach where we need to show Daniel some tough love because he needs it. At the same time, the takeaway can't be long-term takeaway can't be if your first read's not there, take off. That can't be the long-term solution if you want to have success offensively. And if you're thinking your quarterback's holding you back coming into that 2022 season, and Daniel does well. Takeovers are down. He's being smart with the ball. You're winning games, but it's not like Daniel is winning games. It's like he's not losing you games. Daniel puts on a historic performance in that wild card game, again, against a Vikings defense that was suspect. Does not look good against the Eagles, who division rivals and are essentially become the cream of the crop or have been at the top of the division for years and years and years, where you have not. Where was the discussion? And if Daboll is so fucking knowledgeable and has so much expertise, where was the discussion with Shane to say, I know he got us here. I know this was a historic performance. I know this is going to hurt, but we have to move on from him. This is where I get confused. And this is why I don't think you go with the first time head coach again I'm skittish about that because we've now done it the past 2 times and it's been really bad for our health. And I don't know that you go with a first-time GM again. And sometimes you're forced to do that, and that sucks. But I would prefer a more established guy, GM, more established guy, head coach. Because a more established head coach could say, I've seen this before, talking about Daniel Jones. I've seen this before, and I don't think it's going to work out. I don't see him getting better. I think he's limiting us and he's not helping us. There's no next level with him. This is like the best we can get out of him. GM also has to take a look at that and say, you know what, you're right. It's painful. I know this is not going to be popular with the fan base, but when it comes to like who's producing more, who's giving you more productivity, who's giving you more success, when Barkley's out, Jones is in. When Jones is out, Barkley is in. You have to make that kind of decision. And it's like, why didn't you just re-sign Barkley and tag Daniel Jones? But so you go back to the 2022 offense where the team ranked 26th in passing yards, 27th in net yards per pass attempt. So you're basically saying to Daniel, we're not going to throw the ball down the field because we don't have the offensive line to protect you. We're going to do a lot of play action, and that play action is going to be quick, where it's, we're looking at a lot of RPO. We're looking at a lot of slants and hitches and flats and shallows and, hitting that, fake to Barkley on the RPO, hit Daniel Bellinger right away in the tight end. So it's, offensively, it wasn't like we were a juggernaut. It's just we had a pretty decent rushing attack that was balanced and that was efficient is, I guess, the word to say. But in terms of like picking up chunk yardage and being explosive, that was not an explosive chunk yardage offense. It was just a ground and pound, grind it out, and take time off the clock, and then the defense needs to step up. And the defense, as good as it was in 2022, still had its shortcomings. 25th in total yards allowed, 25th in takeaways, 27th in rushing yards allowed, 31st in rushing yards per attempt, and 31st in interceptions. So, I know people are saying like, oh, well, that's the defensive coordinator's fault. No, guys. The head coach is responsible for offense, defense, and special teams, all 3 units. The head coach is responsible for all of it and needs to be held accountable if the defense sucks and the special teams sucks. And I don't think Brian Daboll gave a good goddamn about special teams or defense. I think 100% of his focus was on offense. And look at where it got us. It's not like the offense improved at all. This is the first year where the offense has improved. And I know we think that our offense is like so amazing with Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is amazing. The rest of the offense is average to below average. So it's not like, we've made this tremendous, yes, it's a market improvement over previous seasons with better quarterback play, which he kept on hammering home. Like, all we need is good quarterback play. All we need is good quarterback play. And lo and behold, his own quote bit him in the fucking ass, because you look at what the offense has done. We have a better quarterback, better than Daniel Jones, one of the best in the freaking league, and we're still losing games. Why? Because you can't figure out the kicking situation with the special teams, and you can't figure out defense. And that's on the head coach. 2023 team ranks 29th in total yards on offense, 30th in points scored, 31st in passing yards, 20th in passing touchdowns, 30th in net yards per pass attempt. There was literally a game against the Jets. Do you remember where Tyrod Taylor, Daniel Jones is already hurt, not going to play. Tyrod Taylor starts, he gets hurt. Danny DeVito. Those Jersey Mike's commercials are out of control. Tommy DeVito comes in. We do not attempt a pass. I know that Brian Daboll has a reputation as being a player's coach. The media has often said that his practices, his training camps, his workouts are soft as baby shit because he wants to be liked by the players. And he got a B on his report card from players. So it's so nice that you're liked by players. I don't care. Fans do not care if you are liked by players. Do players play for you in times of adversity? And that is what has come out big time this season, because there have been adverse conditions where we were not in a position to win a lot of games in 2024, okay? We were in position to win games in 2023. Adverse conditions came up short. We were in position to win games in 2025 through 10 weeks, and we fell short repeatedly. And that is because, and you cannot argue against this. I mean, you can, free country, do what you want. You can't tell me there's not a correlation between him being a quote unquote player's coach that has soft practices and soft training camps and soft workouts and soft walkthroughs and soft. You can't tell me there's no correlation between the soft preparation and the soft output and production and results. You can't tell me there's no correlation. There's a direct correlation. You need to have a coach that puts your team through these kind of conditions, adverse conditions, brutality during practice, so that when you get to the game, preparation meets opportunity. You are prepared for that experience, and it clicks, and there's no fear, there's no doubt, there's confidence, because you've been there, you've been through this situation, you drilled into your head. I can't tell you how many times I hear about winning coaches, and just this season alone, what winning coaches do in practice in preparation for games, where they go over a play. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I think, going over a play over and over ad nauseum. It's like that scene from Semi-Pro that I brought up before, where it's like Woody Harrelson's character has this play. He knows it works, and he's going to run it and keep running it in practice until you puke. And that's when Will Ferrell says, I can't puke. And then you ever been punched in the duodenum? That scene, as funny as that is so goddamn true. When you want something to work, or when you have a weakness, a defect, something that you need to improve on, you work on it and you work on it and you work on it and you work on it, and you hammer it home and you hammer it home. I mean, I think I brought this up before on the podcast, but there's a book, The Power of Habit, I think it was. And there's a chapter about Tony Dungy when he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how they had a losing culture there. And he comes in and he instills and installs habits. And the players probably not going to like it at first because it sucks, but they will appreciate it when they get into a game situation and that scenario comes up, and they don't even have to think because it's a habit. He did not preach good habits. He did not instill good habits. He allowed bad habits to proliferate. He allowed bad habits to happen. He allowed errors to keep happening. It's one thing if you have a different error each week. That's okay. Young team, inexperienced, a lot of guys in new position, a lot of new guys off the streets, practice squad, etc. I get it. Making different mistakes. But when you are making the same motherfucking mistakes week in and week out, year after year after year, you have your answer, dude. He's not a good head coach. I don't even know where I left off in these team ranks. 2023. The passing game was a mess because you had Tommy DeVito taking like tons of sacks and not throwing the ball away. And then Tyrod, was the better of the two, obviously, but came up short in big situations. On defense in 2023, 27th in total yards, 26th in points allowed, 29th in total rushing yards, 30th in rushing touchdowns allowed, 31st in rushing yards per attempt, and 24th in net passing yards per attempt. And Wink is canned after the season. And you look at those stats and you're like, well, yeah, he should have been canned. And it's like, well, he also did not get along with Brian Daboll. And maybe the approach that Brian Daboll took with his coach is maybe he should have took that approach with his fucking players first. This is where being a player's coach can really come back to kill you in the long run. You need to be aligned with your coaches. And if you are bitching out and yelling at your coaches more than you're bitching out and yelling out at your players, your coaches get a little ticked and steamed. And, to be honest, I know Wink Martindale has a reputation, but holy fuck, dude. You take a look at Wink Martindale versus Brian Daboll. I'm siding with Wink Martindale 1,000 times because Wink Martindale has been there before, defensive coordinator who has been top of his game for a much longer time that Brian Daboll has been top of his game. I mean, you look back at through his coaching results and coaching rankings, with Cleveland, with Miami, and even with Buffalo. Not great. Wink Martindale has had more success as a defensive coordinator than Brian Daboll has had success as an offensive coordinator. Thusly, I will side with Wink Martindale in that whole battle and discussion. So Brian Daboll is the reason Wink Martindale was fired or retired or let go or whatever. Can you imagine if Brian Daboll just forged a more positive, not even a positive relationship, just a healthy working relationship with Wink Martindale? Can you imagine if he just did that? How differently the 2024 season would have panned out and how differently this season would pan out. We wouldn't have motherfucking Shane Bowen calling soft defenses week in and week out and losing us games. If Brian Daboll handled his shit with Wink Martindale, we're sitting here at 2025, and I guarantee you we're not 2-8. Guarantee you we're not 2-8. But he got into a egotistical battle with Wink Martindale, did not know how to handle that dynamic, did not how to handle that relationship, cost us Wink Martindale, and that decision and that path that he took cost us wins in 2024 and wins in 2025. Our 2024 team ranks under Brian Daboll: 30th in total yards on offense, 31st in points scored, 28th in passing yards, 32nd in passing touchdowns, 30th in net yards per pass attempt. Again, if you had your doubts about Daniel Jones coming in 2022 when you were named the head coach, all of a sudden that changes because he goes to the playoffs and wins a game. Okay, so then you sign him to a monster contract in 2023. And how are you developing Daniel Jones? This is what I'm talking about. You didn't develop Daniel Jones beyond what was going on in 2022. What you did in 2022 worked. Now, how do you take it to the next level to ensure that we win 2 playoff games in 2023? And instead, you completely regressed. And this is where Shane comes into play because his decisions after we lose the Eagles in the playoffs in January 2024, January 2023. What the fuck did Joe Schoen do to help us get to the next level? They have full on admitted, Daboll and Schoen have full on admitted that their success in 2022 was a mirage or smokescreen, and they did not take the job seriously after that. So it's similar to what happened with Jerry Reese after we won the second Super Bowl against the Patriots. What are you doing to help this team continue to thrive and win? You're just saying, okay, what we have is good and we don't have to make any moves. You can't rest on your laurels, dude. It's the no days off mentality that really drove the Patriots way. The Giants just they get a little sniff of success and it's just like, yeah, we good, we gooch. We don't need to do anything. It's like, no, dude. We just because we went to the playoffs and won doesn't mean that we're a great team. You want to be great. You don't want to just be good enough. You want to be great. You go out and sign Drew Lock, man, as your backup. And he was awful. And again, who do you like? Drew Lock. Who's that on? Is that Joe Schoen? Is that Brian Daboll? You're telling me that Joe Schoen's making that decision unilaterally? You don't think he's talking to Brian Daboll, who supposedly knows quarterbacks and knows how to get the most out of quarterbacks? You don't think they talked and have a conversation and they were like, yeah, totally. Drew Lock. What bothers me about Brian Daboll is that that he has strong opinions, but yet it's like when he gets in a room with Joe Schoen, I don't want to say he completely turtles, but it's like, dude, this is your time to put your stamp on it and to really be a little more assertive in that respect so that when Joe comes back to you with something that you don't like, push back. And you could say, oh, well, he pushed back on, he really wanted Jaden Daniels, but it's like, you can't, the Commanders are not going to give that up. And you really like Drake May, and you're not going to be able to get Drake May because the Patriots are unwilling to move off that, or they were asking for a king's ransom. So it's like only 2 guys. You're looking around the league, there was no one else. I don't think that. I mean, Daboll has an eye for talent, but if you are so convinced about players, how did you end up with Drew Lock as your backup in 2024? Knowing that Daniel has an injury history, knowing that his neck's not great, his coming off an ACL, all this stuff. You made zero effort to retain Tyrod Taylor. You were like shocked that the Jets made the offer that they did. And it's like, I don't know, man. So 2024 defense under Shane Bowen, 24th in total yards, 28th in takeaways, 27th in rushing yards allowed, 24th in rushing yards per attempt, 31st in interceptions, 25th in net yards per attempt. And you saw that, and you thought that was acceptable. What was the discussion like in the offseason? Hey, miraculously, myself, this is me, Brian Daboll speaking, miraculously, me and Joe are still here. So we got to figure out this defense, man. How do we figure it out? We can't do what we did in 2024. We can't repeat what happened in 2024 if we want to keep our jobs and win in 2025. And what happens? We go out and we draft Abdul Carter at number 3. We signed Javon Hallen and Paulson Adebo in free agency. On paper, we are better. And yet our numbers in 2025 are worse than they were in 2024 when our offense was giving you nothing. Through week 10, the 2025 Giants team ranks are thus. On offense, we're 24th in points scored, which I know it seems crazy because it seems like we're scoring more points than we are last year. Spoiler alert, we are, but we're still not scoring as much as we could or can. We're still wasting our scoring opportunities. We're still not making the most of our opportunities. We're still making stupid mistakes. The penalty situation under Brian Daboll was untenable. I don't like. So few teams in the league can get away with double-digit penalties every game and win. You're sacrificing and giving up too much yardage, self-inflicted errors and mistakes. It's one thing if you're not getting a lot of penalties and you're coming up short, but when you are giving yards away like that repeatedly, that's a discipline issue, and it connects back to him being a quote-unquote player's coach. And this is why we are so soft down the stretch in the fourth quarter. And this is why we would collapse in the fourth quarter. It's because we do not have the kind of mindset and preparation heading into the season and heading into each goddamn week. 29th in total yards allowed, 27th in points allowed, 30th in takeaways, 31st in rushing yards allowed, 30th in rushing touchdowns allowed, 32nd in rushing yards per attempt. Shane Bowen was supposed to be known as this guy who's going to dramatically improve our rush defense. Look at what he did with the Titans and their rush defense. That's what he is known for. It was his fucking signature and basically the entire reason we hired him. And we're worse than we were with Wink Martindale. So, yeah, sayonara, dude. I cannot be. It's energizing. Spare me the whole, he's got a family. Oh, he's got a family. Motherfucker made millions of dollars, all right? Be smart with your money, invest, and you'll be able to skate by for a year or two. I mean, I'm entering fucking month 16 of being unemployed on a salary that is absolute garbage before that, and I've been able to keep my head afloat. Granted, I'm now gonna have to dip into some shit and sell off a bunch of stuff just to pay the bills and pay the rent and afford food. But here I am. No one's crying me a fucking river, so I'm not going to cry a river for a goddamn head coach that had made millions of friggin' dollars and is going to get and still has money left on his contract that he's going to get paid by the Giants to not do shit. So spare me the fucking, he's got a job. We're talking about another man's job. You only say that when you're talking about a guy, a blue-collar worker, who literally is making like 5 figures. That's who you say that about. You don't say that about a guy making 7 fucking figures to figure out a child sport. So sick of that, hearing that shit. Don't talk about another man's job. Get the fuck out of here. How about you live on $60,000 a year net and then get canned due to mass layoffs that is outside your fucking control and then be unemployed for almost 2 years because the job market sucks. Then you don't talk about another person's job. Spare me that. Another family and the family will get over it, dude. Trust me. Trust. When you have millions of dollars that are going, unless and if you end up in the fucking unemployment line, begging for bread and trying to get SNAP benefits off of fucking NFL head coach's salary, that's on you, my man. That's a personal decision that you made that you lost out on. Oh, god damn. This is a happy occasion. No, not for Brian Daboll and his family. They'll survive. Trust, they'll survive. But it's a happy occasion because the Giants have realized that you cannot put up with this bullshit. And if you want any kind of hope going into the next season, you need to finish this season somewhat strong. You cannot go 2-15. At this point, you got to go 500 or better for Giants fans to have any kind of hope or hype. I mean, we're already hyped and have hope after Daboll being fired. What he did in that Bears game, I listened to the Giants Nation podcast post-game show on Sunday, and I was so horrifically disappointed. And I'm a huge fan. I love Bobby Skimmer. I love the Grump. But I was just disappointed in their reaction to this game. Defending Brian Daboll kicking a field goal on the 1-yard line, and then defending his decision to decline the penalty, which would have put them on the half-yard line. I don't care if motherfucking Teresa is the quarterback. You go for it in that situation. How the fuck do you kick a field goal? It's got to be that has to be a record for the shortest. I want to know what the record for shortest field goal is. And I'm pretty sure we just came close to it. That 19-yard field goal. I mean, I said this in the moment, and I'm going to double down and triple down on it. Brian Daboll has done so many things to be fired, and as Dan Schneider said, I think someone else said it. Brian Daboll has had the longest leash imaginable, and it's because of what happened after Tom Coughlin. Because we pulled the plug too soon on Ben McAdoo. Because we pulled the plug too soon on Pat Shurmur. Because we pulled the plug too soon on Joe Judge. I think everyone was pretty much in agreement. Ben McAdoo did not have control of the team, and you saw the results. So while he was an okay to good offensive coordinator, we saw once he got into the role of head coach, the wheels were coming off in 2016, dude. His first year. That's why we moved on. Pat Shurmur is a guy that had head coaching experience before. He comes here, and I mean, Joe Judge, first-time head coach. Pat Shurmur, dismissive. Turned the offense around in 2018. Looked good offensively in 2019. Defensive side of the ball was still garbage. You need a head coach that can think in all three phases and is focused in all three phases, or at least has the ability to work with a coach that he can get to inspire and motivate that unit. It's like Dan Campbell has an offensive background, former tight end. But, I mean, Jesus Christ, he gets the defense to step up and play, especially when they had so many injuries on that side of the ball last season. Do people forget? And this season, it's like he understands that the play calling has been not up to his standard. We're talking about standards. It's the inconsistency with what is acceptable with this organization and this regime is wild. Kenny Galladay is not going to see the field at all, but we're going to continue to run out other people that do not deserve a roster spot. We're going to run some people out of town that have given us the best production at that position, and then we're going to bring in someone else and overpay them. The kicker alone, dude. The kicker alone was reason enough to move on from this regime. The fact that you did not cut Graham Gano, you kept him on, he continues to get fucking hurt and now miss kicks, and you don't have a backup plan is fireable. How do you not have, it's like Joe Schoen, his to-do list is one item. I got to fix the linebacker situation. All right, well, I fixed it. It's all right, but what about the secondary? What about the offensive line? What about a wide receiver 2? What about a safety? What about, it's congratulations on like addressing this one thing that you now have 9 other things that you have to address and you have failed. So if you were to do like a cost benefit analysis, pros versus cons, you're going to sit there and tell me that Joe Schoen has more pros than cons? The same, I mean, Daboll has way more cons than pros. You're going to sit there and tell me Joe Schoen has more pros than cons? Yeah, wrong. He don't. So yes, kudos to Giants ownership and management for moving on from Brian Daboll. You know, I thought it was going to come at the bye week, but I mean, Jesus Christ, there's no reason to delay the inevitable. If everyone is pointing to, well, I mean, his job is as good as gone once the season is over. We know that for a fact. Why wait? Why wait? And if he was about like, I don't know that I brought this up on the last episode, but like if Mara wanted to fire, if the rumor and reports of Mara wanting to fire Brian Daboll when he got off the plane from the Denver game were true, why wouldn't it be any less true to do it after this game? I mean, I don't even know if I want to talk about the trade deadline because it's already been talked about, but I think the trade, like that's another situation where we're now everyone's like, thank you for taking care of Daboll. Next up is Shane. And why hasn't Shane Bowen been fired? And maybe there are some people out there that are surprised that Daboll gets canned before Bowen, but it's like, I mean, you have to know that Bowen's not being retained. You have to know it. There might be a belief. So this is kind of devil's advocate kind of counter argument. I mean, to me, there's no decision to be made here. It's like Shane Bowen should be gone. But there might be a theory floating around that Brian Daboll is the one that is holding back Shane Bowen and holding back Mike Kafka. And that's why you see Mike Kafka is now the interim head coach, and they have not they have not fired Shane Bowen, and they don't have any other expected moves at this time, which there's very key wording on that. No further moves expected at this time, right? So say, hypothetical, Giants come out, Kafka's the interim head coach. I don't see us winning this Packers game unless it's one of those situations where it's like, you know, what happened with the Raiders when we went to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. They had just canned their coach. Was it Josh McDaniels? It was someone with the Patriots. He gets canned. AP is the new head coach. His first game as head coach is against the Giants, and they win. And so you have that one kind of, you know, the team kind of rallies without the old head coach in the position, and they win. So that's a very real possibility. Of course, especially with a Green Bay Packers team that just lost to the Panthers at home, tied the Cowboys in Dallas. You know, we'll get into the game by game, week by week with them, but like lost to the Browns in Cleveland. So it's you know, as much as I like to think, there are times where it looks like the Packers are Super Bowl bound. There are also times where it's like, holy shit, how are they struggling this much? With a defense like that, with an offense like that, when they click, it's like they're unstoppable, but like a lot of weird hiccups and speed bumps. So with Daboll as head coach and with Russell Wilson as the starting quarterback, if Dart can't go, we lose that Packers game 10 out of 10. Kafka comes in and says, you know what? What the fuck do I have to lose? Let's take the friggin' restrictor plate off and let's go whole hog on this bitch. Russell Wilson, you're the backup. Jameis Winston, you're the starter. Is it crazy to think that we could pull off an upset win? We've done it in the past, what is it, two games we've been underdogs. 2022 in London, 2023 with Tommy DeVito on Monday night. We were underdogs both those times, and when we had the upset win. So I don't think it's crazy to think that we could pull off an upset against Green Bay. But what I think management and front office is looking for in holding back from firing anyone else is what can our coaching staff do without Brian Daboll at the helm? This has now become a forensic exploratory autopsy where it's like, okay, let's see how big of a negative effect Brian Daboll had on the coaching staff, because we know that he's had his issues with coordinators and coaches. So now we get to see, with him not in place for a week, and I don't know if this is the best game to judge, but we're not judging just on this game alone, right? We're now taking the rest of the season to see like what we think with these coaches, to see like, okay, was it truly 100% Brian Daboll, or was there a lot to fall on Shane Bowen's shoulders? Because I've heard this time and time again. There's a play call in every game where we question it. We say, wait, I don't like that call. I don't like that call. And we say, Mike Kafka, what are you doing? Why did Mike Kafka call that play? And there's lots of people in the know who are smart that say, well, in a critical situation, 4th and 1, fourth quarter, the head coach has the authority and the license to step in and intervene and say, no, that's not the move here. I do not agree with that. I do not want that. A veteran head coach does that. I think there's a time where Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, all the greats will step in and disagree and say, hard no, I disagree with that. So if that's the case with Kafka, wouldn't that be the case with Shane Bowen as well? If Shane Bowen is calling something at the end of a game that you do not agree with, don't you as the head coach have the authority to step in and say, Shane, I don't like this. I don't like dropping 8 and rushing 3. I don't like that Dexter is on the sideline. I don't like that we're dropping Brian Burns instead of rushing him. I don't like that we're having Abdul Carter as a spy and not having him on the LOS, line of scrimmage, and having him, unleashed. Of course, because of his background and because the Brian Daboll has been strictly an offensive coordinator kind of guy, I think he's more apt to have confidence in stepping in if Kafka does something off or he doesn't agree with. I think he's less apt to step in when Shane Bowen is calling something that he disagrees with. But you're the head coach, dude. This is what we're talking about. You're the head coach. You need to step in and say, I do not like this game plan. I do not like this scheme. And that goes back to preparation during the week. Listen, I don't question Brian Daboll's intelligence. I don't question his knowledge. I question his decision-making and his modus operandi, his operationals. How is he operating during the week? When we come into this Bears game, are we going through every scenario? Are we saying, hey, if we get up on this team by 10 points, if we get into a 4th and goal situation from the 1 and we're up by a score, are we going for it or are we kicking the field goal? I want to go for it. I want to be aggressive. I want to put the game away. That's offensively. Defensively, we're up by 10 points. What can we do to prevent what happened in the Saints game, in the Dallas game, in the Denver game? What was that conversation like between Daboll and Bowen, dude? Because we're getting the same results. So it doesn't feel like anything has changed. Like, as the head coach, he did something miraculous in this Bears game where he actually made an in-game adjustment. Jamie Gillen was an absolute detriment on the kickoffs. Opening kickoff towards the end of the first half. He makes the change. He says, Koo, get out there and just kick the ball deep. Like, we can't keep giving the Bears a potent offense that could be much more potent if it ever got its fucking act together and stopped dropping balls. We got to stop giving them, and Ben Johnson, one of the best offensive minds in the world, the ball at the 40. You're putting your defense at disadvantage. Holy shit. So, yeah, I put a lot of, there are a lot of people to blame for the demise of Daniel Jones, but there's a laundry list of reasons why Brian Daboll should be fired. But the one positive thing that everyone keeps attributing to Brian Daboll in Jackson Dart, right? Jackson Dart is the reason that everyone wanted to keep Brian Daboll around because of blah, 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 blah development. This motherfucker either didn't see that Jackson Dart went limp on the carry that he got the concussion, or he was like, I can't have Russell Wilson be in the game. Just remove everything else. In the Thursday night football game, okay, so first of all, we come into the 2025 season. We already have Jameis Winston signed. And I think I am pretty confident in saying that I was okay with Jameis Winston starting for the 2025 Giants. Even if we did draft a quarterback, I was like, it's fine. We know this is going to be a weird transition season. We know he's a bridge quarterback. We know he's not the long-term solution. We know that we do need to find a young quarterback that we can build around and get a cornerstone quarterback, franchise quarterback. We know that. But we're okay with Jameis Winston. They then double down and sign Russell Wilson. And you're like, okay. And, hindsight's 2020, but Jesus Christ, Russell Wilson is unplayable. Cannot see the field. He has now come in relief 2 times. And if this were a home game, you wouldn't be able to hear the snap count when we're on offense because the crowd would be booing so loudly. They booed when he came into the game against the Eagles when Dart went out into the blue tent. They would have booed in this game. But luckily it was in Chicago, so Russell didn't have to worry about that. So there's one of 2 things happening here, right? Firstly, if we're to believe that Brian, where do you sit on this? I'm going to ask you, the audience. Okay. Do you think that Brian Daboll wanted Russell Wilson? Fairly simple question, right? Yes or no? Did he want Russell Wilson? Probably no. It feels like, from everything that went down over the offseason, he preferred Matthew Stafford. And so did Joe Schoen, and it makes sense. Matthew Stafford wanted nothing to do with us, dude. We could have thrown him $60 million a year, $70 million a year. That motherfucker was not coming here. We were used as a bargaining chip to get the Rams to come back to the table and be like, all right, you're right. What are we doing? Like, this is stupid. We still got another year, and it has paid off. Stafford was never going to sign with the Giants. Never. I'm talking, we could have given him $60-70 million a year. I do not think he would have come here. So that was option number 1. And you have to think, okay, if you can't get Stafford, then Winston's fine. So why did you bring in Wilson? And everyone, I just want truth serum distributed amongst the whole organization. Say, did you really think that Russell Wilson was going to come in here after seeing what happened in Denver and after seeing the Steelers move on from both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson after making the playoffs last season? You want to talk about moving off of something? Steelers made the playoffs, but yet they've been there before. So they understand what it takes to win in the playoffs. And they saw the performance they got in the playoffs from Russell Wilson. They were like, nah, we good. And Justin Fields, we're good. Thanks. And they went out and they got Aaron Rodgers. Would I have been more comfortable with Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback? No, dude. Sure, he's still got some gas in the tank. Sure, he is better than Russell Wilson, but he's not going to make a run with them. He's dead. I mean, he's not going to, they'll make the playoffs and they could win a playoff game. They're not winning the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. So I'm fine with not signing Aaron Rodgers, and I'm fine with not signing Russell Wilson, because these are 2 guys that are going to cost a lot of money, and it's like, maybe you make the playoffs. Jameis Winston, you sign for much, half the price. You'll still have some entertaining football to watch, and maybe he sneaks into the playoffs. So Brian Daboll has now brought in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen have brought in Tyrod Taylor, which makes sense because Tyrod played with Daboll in Buffalo. It's like there's some familiarity there, and Tyrod played fairly well with the Giants. I would have liked to see him play a little better in key situations, but he played well. He's one of the better backups that we've ever had. You let Tyrod walk. You bring in Drew Lock. Barf. Okay. You're like, all right, Drew Lock's not the answer. He's not a bridge quarterback for us, even though, he has the one big game against Indianapolis, but all the other games he's just bad, flat out bad. So you're not able to get the best out of Drew Lock, who's only 27 at the time. It's not like he's over the hill past his prime. He should be entering his prime at age 27. That's usually when quarterbacks take off. So you're looking at Brian Daboll unable to develop or improve Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock. You bring in Jameis Winston, and you decide to sign Russell Wilson. And I guarantee the condition that you gave, that you had to acquiesce on, that you had, everything's a negotiation and compromise. And with Russell Wilson, you cannot convince me that he didn't demand to start. And he was guaranteed to start from the get, and that's the only reason he signed. There's no way that he would have signed if they were like, we're going to put you into a quarterback competition with Jameis Winston. There's no way he's going to sign. Or at the time, we don't have the drafted rookie quarterback, but we're looking at quarterbacks in this draft, and we're probably going to select one. Are you comfortable doing a quarterback competition with a fucking rookie quarterback? There's no way Russell Wilson would sign here. So by signing Russell Wilson, you are forced to start him. You're forced to start him. And holy shit, dude. 3 games, you go 1-2 with him. No, we went 0-3. Or did we go 1-2? No, we went 0-3. We went 0-3. So that's 3 games that you cost us because you thought that Russell Wilson was a capable starter. And even after what happened in game 1. And it's wild to think, like, I wonder if we had played any other defense in week 2 and it wasn't Dallas, what kind of performance we would have got from Russell Wilson. Because, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys defense, prior to all these trades that they just made, was bottom of the barrel, one of the worst in the league, especially from a pass defense standpoint. So it's like if we had played any other defense in week 2 and Russell put up the same kind of performance he did in week 1, how the hell is he going to be a starter in week 3? So you cost us 3 games by deciding to go with Russell Wilson and not Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart. So if Jackson Dart was so good and outperforming Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in the preseason, why wasn't he starting week 1? Because you basically had to guarantee Russell Wilson the starter for him to sign on the dotted fucking line. It's the inconsistency in terms of moving off of people but sticking with some other people is just, it's so volatile and inconsistent and untrustworthy. And that's the biggest thing, is that you can't rely and depend and trust on this regime. And Daboll's not part of the equation anymore, which is great, but you still have Schoen in the mix. Like, so Schoen, like, did Daboll not want to sign Russell Wilson? So either he did not want to sign Russell Wilson, but Schoen wanted to hedge his bets. It was like, we can't roll into the season with Jameis Winston. We won't have it. And it's just like, you actually made the worst decision by signing Russell Wilson and not just going with Jameis Winston. And you also had Tommy DeVito on the roster still. So it's not like there was a need to get another quarterback at that time. So huge mistake signing Russell Wilson. And does it have long-term ramifications? No. But in terms of this season, you signed him, he cost you 3 games. If you don't want to say 3 games, you said we should have won the Dallas game, fine. He cost you 2 wins. That Washington game was winnable. That Chiefs game was winnable. Just, it's as simple as this. Put in Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart in those 2 games. Do we win? Your odds are higher. And if your odds are higher, then what the fuck is Russell Wilson doing on the team, and what is he doing starting? And why is he still on the team after the trade deadline? So either Brian Daboll didn't want to start Russell Wilson and he really wanted to start Jackson Dart, and he had the front office and Joe Schoen and his goonies breathing down his neck and being like, you have to start Russell Wilson. Please do not start Jackson Dart because he's only 22 and this is his redshirt year and we want him to sit and da-da-da-da. And is Brian Daboll just sitting on his hands like, well, you know, I'm kind of on the hot seat already and I don't want to like upset the boat, rock the boat, ruffle feathers. So I'm just going to go with what is handed down to me and just follow orders. Why is he the head coach then? Like, it's just, I don't know, dude. I mean, I do know. I should stop saying that. I do know. He's made some really cowardly decisions. And if you feel so strongly about something like Russell Wilson should not be your starting quarterback, then you need to put your foot down and be like, I know this is an unpopular opinion. I know this goes against what you want, but I'm the head coach. I need to make the decisions here. And I'm deciding. I mean, it goes back to what we just said with like, you know, I know this is baseball, but with Davey Johnson and the GM Frank Cashin for the Mets, they butted heads and had conflict repeatedly. Davey Johnson pushed back a lot and had a lot of heavy discussions, intense debates with Frank Cashin about how he was managing the roster and how he was managing games. But you know what? Davey Johnson was fucking right and won. So Frank Cashin needs to like ease up a little bit, and instead he fires him, and the Mets go into a tailspin for the next 8 years, 7 years. If you're Brian Daboll and you hear all these reports about how you probably should have been fired after the 2024 season, but you were miraculously spared. Why wouldn't you go out your way, dude? Go out your way. You're not going to save your job by being a coward. You're going to save your job by having a vision, sticking to it, and executing your game plan. And he didn't. Did you really think that Russell Wilson was the answer? Especially after you went through training camp and preseason and knowing, like, it's one thing if Russell Wilson is coming off, is like year one with the Broncos, if that's like, because it was just Russell Wilson's demise has been a long time coming. Like the fact that he had the year he had in 2023 and then another year in 2024, where it's like, this is not the same Russell Wilson. It's not even close to the same Russell Wilson that we've come to expect. And even looking at 2022, where he was not that great with the Seahawks, you thought he was just going to turn around. That's how you're going to win games. He was your best chance to win. Then yeah, you deserve to be fired. People are questioning your judgment. And maybe he comes out and says, it wasn't my decision to start Russell Wilson. It wasn't my decision for Drew Lock. It wasn't my decision for this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, well, then who's next on the chopping block. It has to be Joe Schoen. Because if Joe Schoen is telling Brian Daboll who to start and who to play and is imposing his will on, I signed this guy to a monster contract, we have to play him. I mean, you're fine with, sitting Kenny Galladay for the entirety of the 22 season, who had your biggest contract in terms of wide receivers, one of your biggest free agent spends the previous season, and you're going to sit him the whole season. It's just weird. So yeah, I mean, like, I know this is such a long way to talk about it, but I mean, it just it's infuriating. I just don't, it's like you have free will, dude. You have free will. That's why the people that are making excuses for Daboll, it's like, I'm not an idiot. I understand that the organization is just a cesspool at this point, very toxic. I get it. Dysfunctional to the max. I get it. And it's not a great situation to be in. But you also can't just roll over. So it's if you have and the way to overcome that is, guess who has control on the field in the game? During the game, you have the control. You have the say. John Mara is not phoning you. Shouldn't be. John Mara and Joe Schoen are not calling you during the game and telling you what to do. You make the decisions in the game, dude. Your in-game decisions stink. Your decisions leading up to the game stink. Just a lack of preparation. Just like the whole kind of lackadaisical approach to the game is the reason why you should be fired. It's a lack of preparation. I wasn't able to talk about the trade deadline because it happened on Tuesday. I thought after the the loss of the 49ers, it was pretty clear. There was some debate well, if we beat the 49ers, maybe we do trade for a wide receiver. Maybe we are a buyer at the deadline, but then we lost and it's like, all right, you got to sell. And I mean, if you want any more evidence against Schoen, if you still need evidence, which we've presented so much evidence to move on from Joe Schoen, it's incredible. The fact that you had a handful of trade candidates and you didn't make any moves indicates, and they made sure that they told everyone, oh, Joe Schoen was making calls, and you couldn't execute a trade. What does that say about the personnel? If that's the reason you want to keep Joe Schoen, is personnel. Look at the personnel. Look at the moves he's made. Brian Burns. It's just Brian Burns? A trade that he made with his fucking best friend, Dan Morgan? That if anyone other than Dan Morgan is the Panthers GM, does that trade even get made? Let's pump the brakes on Brian Burns' trade for a sec. Because what else has he done? Andrew Thomas seems like an easy decision. Extend. Dexter Lawrence seemed like an easy decision. Extend. He's had multiple top 10 picks in the draft. Top 10 picks. And has whiffed. And those aren't tough decisions to make. Abdul Carter at 3 is not a tough decision to make. Malik Neighbors is not a tough decision to make. These aren't tough decisions. Yes, we traded up for Jackson Dart. Kudos. All signs are pointing to Brian Daboll was the one who was pushing for that. Wow, that's what he say. We got your guy. If that's someone that you believed in, you would say we got our guy. You don't say we got your guy. How did you not deal Russell Wilson at the trade deadline? You telling me there's 0 teams out there who could just use either a patchwork starter or a backup down the stretch? Why weren't you able to trade Jalen Hyatt? Why weren't you able to trade Evan Neal? You didn't want to trade Kayvon Thibodeau, and it's like, okay, I'm fine with that, but you're still going to run into a situation where you're cutting down on someone's playing time, and there's only so much money to go around. Are you going to end up paying Kayvon Thibodeau top dollar when you have Abdul Carter with a contract coming up off his rookie contract? It's like, and you have Burns on a big contract and you have Dexter Lawrence on a big contract. Is there enough pie to go around? And if you do invest in Kayvon Thibodeau, are you going to be able to invest in the other parts that matter, that are complementary, that are the reason why we're losing? Everyone points to our defensive line and says we have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. But then you get beyond that and it's like, there's no one. Bobby Okereke is not playing at a level that you would hope he would be playing. He is among the league leaders in tackles, but is he making the difference? It's almost like Bobby Okereke is the Wan'Dale Robinson of the defense. These are 2 guys that are putting up numbers, but it's like, are you winning us games? Are you making the difference? Are you changing the game? Impact plays. Sure, Wan'Dale's getting a first down here or there. He's like the in terms of numbers, one of the top, if not the top slot receivers in the game. And it's like, and we're still sitting here going, I don't know. I mean, he has his top supporters and he has his loyalists and apologists and advocates and all that stuff. And that's fine. But like, you just handed a monster contract to Darius Slayton. Like, if you like, the Jackson Dart thing is actually the final nail in the coffin for Brian Daboll, correct? Because like the way he handled that and mismanaged Jackson Dart is a major reason why he's no longer a head coach. Major reason. Because he was supposed to be the reason to develop Dart, and he's not developing Dart. He's actually inhibiting him and damaging him by putting him back in the fucking game after he was limp on the field. How do you not see that your quarterback is limp on the field? How did you not see that? Is it on the other side of the field, I guess? And like, you didn't see it? Like, no one on your staff saw that? There's no one calling down and being like, check on him? No, I mean, like, the NFL really butchered handling that. And there's a strong possibility that Dart had a fucking concussion in the Niners game and was put back in. So like, left the game due to a concussion. No. He had the concussion. There was 5 minutes of game time that went by. 5 minutes. He was hurt with like 5 minutes left in the third quarter. He went back on the field at the end of the third quarter and threw a pass. And that's when you noticed just not having the wherewithal. So this is the long-winded way of saying, if Brian Daboll made the decision to start Russell Wilson, what are you doing? You then start Jackson Dart against the Chargers in week 4. Dart gets hurt in the Eagles Thursday night game. This was the whole fiasco that went down. The blue tent controversy, in which Daboll gets fined $200,000 because he's going and meddling into an investigation in game instead of being a fucking head coach and paying attention to the game. You know why he's doing that? Sure, he cares a lot about Jackson Dart. He wants Jackson Dart in the game. Why is Russell Wilson in the game then? You benched him because he's costing you games. You then make him the backup, but then when he's the backup and Dart goes down and is being evaluated and is in the game, you are scrambling and are frantic to get Dart out of the blue tent and back into the game because that's how little fucking confidence you have in Russell Wilson. So why is Russell Wilson your backup? It's literally that simple. I mean, I know I'm accused of black and white thinking and having a rigid mindset, but like, dude, you benched him and you made him the backup. because you thought that even as a backup, he would still help your team or give you a better chance to succeed than Jameis Winston. And if you're Jameis Winston, God bless Jameis Winston. His ability to stay positive and his ability to still be a leader on the sideline during the complete mishandling of this entire quarterback situation. I don't know how he does it. I would like to know what drugs he's on, because I wouldn't be able to do that as a sober person. Like seeing your head coach bench a guy, list him as the backup over you when you have not been given a chance and you looked okay in the preseason and you have not been given a chance in the regular season, and to see the coach who benched the starter put that guy back in and then lose his shit at the blue tent doing something that I have never seen a head coach do in my entire 40 plus years of watching National Football League. I've never seen a fucking coach do that. And then still have Russell Wilson as your backup after that Thursday night debacle. We won, by the way, but Jesus Christ. To see how embarrassing that was as a Giants fan, to see our head coach act and behave like that when it comes, and then to still, after that, the way that Daboll acted in that situation, hearing the boos rain down from the stadium on Russell Wilson and seeing how ineffective he was in that moment, and then still keeping Russell Wilson as your backup, and then and then wonder why we lost this game against Chicago. Like, and you know what? I would be pretty confident that if Daboll was not fired, Russell Wilson would be a starter in this game against the Packers. And Mike Kafka has the opportunity to do something that will win so many points with the fans, regardless of how Jameis Winston plays. Because I know for a fact there's no way Jameis Winston plays worse than what Russell Wilson is showing us. I know for a fact that's not going to happen. I'll put good money on that. Why did you have Russell Wilson as your backup? You benched him to begin with. He was so ineffective. That Chiefs game was, he should have retired. Russell Wilson should have retired after the Chiefs game. And I tweeted it, yesterday at the Bears game. I was like, Russell Wilson needs to retire after this game. I mean, like, you cannot come into that situation as a 10-year vet, whatever he is, 10-time Pro Bowler, gone to the Super Bowl a couple times. You can't come into that game and play like you did and just not give us a chance whatsoever and make poor decision after poor decision and look lost and confused and just flaccid, dude. Just like impotent. But that has to be a Brian Daboll decision. Is Joe Schoen and John Merrick like calling him and having meetings with him during the week, be like, you can't make him the emergency quarterback. That's not in his contract. First of all, if that's in his contract, Schoen should be fired. Like, there's no reason why you owe anything to Russell Wilson. You signed him. You guaranteed him money. I think he's making more money than Jackson Dart. All right, it didn't work out. You should have traded him. The fact that you weren't able to trade Russell Wilson, Jalen Hyatt, Evan Neal, these guys that are like have not seen the field or are playing so poorly, is a reflection on how poorly they have played and how poorly you have handled them. And that's on Joe Schoen and it's on Brian Daboll. You can point to Brian Burns all you want with Joe Schoen, but like, if he is unable to make any other deals like the Brian Burns deal with another team where his best friend isn't the GM, you can't do business. And if you can't do business as a general manager, what are we doing? What are we doing? Look at fucking Howie Roseman, dude. This guy continues to make deal after deal after deal after deal. They just went to the fucking Super Bowl and won. They went to the Super Bowl 2 or 3 years ago. Just lost, barely. He has made deal after deal after deal after deal. And yet people know what Howie Roseman's doing. They see the results. They continue to make deals with him. That is not happening with Joe Schoen, and that is all the reason you need to move on from him. Sure, has he done better than Dave Gettleman? There's been a lot of debate and arguments about that. Gettleman didn't last more than 3 or 4 years. Is he better than Jerry Reese? No. So I just move on from Joe Schoen. I can't believe that we're actually having this conversation. Move on from Joe Schoen. No one wants to do business with him. The way that he has handled his business has been awful. He butchered the Saquon Barkley negotiations. He was awful. He didn't even He didn't even, I mean, unless I'm missing something, he paid zero mind to Xavier McKinney. Julian Love, Leonard Williams, letting a lot of good players leave, dude. As much as you've retained good players better than the previous GM. That's for damn sure. Not that the previous GM had an opportunity to really retain, but it's just wild that we're even having this fucking conversation, dude. To not, and if he's making calls and not able to get a deal done with anyone for Evan Neal, Jalen Hyatt, Russell Wilson, and any of the handful of players that were like top trade candidates, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I don't really need to get into much of this trade deadline bullshit, but it's just like not being able to do one deal at the trade deadline when none of these players are part of your future. And that's part of it is like, well, we've done such a shitty job with these players and we have shown little to nothing in terms of their value on the field. That's why you're not able to trade them, because people are like, well, if we're really going to take a chance on these guys, we'll just wait until they become free agents and then we'll sign them to a reasonable, modest deal and just hope that they flourish in a new location. That's why you weren't able to trade anyone. And if that's the case, it just hurts my brain. It's like, well, what are you going to get, a 7th rounder? And it's like, yeah, let's get some extra 7th rounders so we can draft a punter and we can draft a kicker, because that's usually when you draft a punter or a kicker. And you're telling me that the top punter or top kicker in all of college football will not be available in the 7th round? And if you're not able to draft a kicker or a punter in the 7th round with your additional 7th round picks, then you can at least use them to increase the value of a swap or a trade for moving up. I mean, that's exactly what, I think the Patriots did during their reign. That's what the Eagles are doing. They're collecting picks because they know that the more picks that they can collect, that gives them more flexibility and ability to move up and trade up when the mood strikes and when the time hits. It's like, no, did I want to trade for Jacoby Myers? Not really. But a 4th and a 6th for Jacoby Myers? Adonai Mitchell, though? Was that worth taking a swing on? The fact that the Colts were able to get Sauce Gardner from the Jets, but they give, and they give up 2 first-round picks, one this year and one next year, to get Gardner, but they give up Adonai Mitchell, who is a promising prospect who made a couple big mistakes, and it's like, is that something that you take a swing on? Rashid Shaheed was another guy. He went from the Saints somewhere. Brian Thomas Jr. was in the mix. So it's like, the reason why someone's a trade candidate is because it's not working out in where they are. Either it's not a fit with the coaching staff, it's not a fit in the scheme, has not lived up to expectations, or just wants out. The Eagles acquiring Jalen Phillips and acquiring, Zaire Alexander, and like, it's just the Eagles just keep making moves. Cowboys are making moves at like 3-4-1, and then they go out and lose to the Cardinals on Monday night. They end up getting Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. It's like, here's the thing, right? If you win that game against the Niners, are you able to make that trade for Logan Wilson? Do you make the trade for Quinnen Williams? I just don't have any confidence in Joe Schoen to get that done. Literally, everyone's going to hang their hat on that Brian Burns trade, and it's like, dude, if Dan Morgan is not the fucking GM of the Panthers, that deal's not getting done. It's just not. That just goes to show you what kind of leverage and wheeling and dealing power that Joe Schoen has. So, to me, it's like there's no reason why we should hold on to this guy. And then, of course, after that 49ers loss, right at the trade deadline, November 4th, this new account pops up on Twitter or X. Jason Smith, at Jason Smith XLII, which is the Roman numerals for 46, which corresponds with the last Super Bowl that the Giants won. So Jason Smith, JS, the initials, Joe Schoen, the initials, JS. And, other podcasts have like kind of briefly mentioned this and haven't paid it any mind because, the odds of this being the actual Joe Schoen burner account are like slim to none. But there's a lot of interesting things that this anonymous profile is throwing out there that I thought I would share because, I don't know, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, if any of this is true, dear God, dude. And I'm sure there's hey, I've seen Ballers on HBO, right? Like, the NFL is a weird place. There's a lot of crazy shit. A.J. Brown has talked about his issues with a lot of the Eagles players on that team. And, like, there's even in winning cultures, a lot of crazy shenanigans and antics are going down. It's just when you're losing and things tend to leak. So would I be shocked if if these stories are real? No. Given the level of dysfunction with this organization, it's like, yeah, okay. So the account was created or went public on November 4th of this year. So on the trade deadline or right after the trade deadline. So one of the first, I pulled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 posts that I think really speak to something that goes beyond a lifelong fan, quote unquote. First one on November 4th that I found interesting. I heard from a source that Brian Daboll and Brandon Brown got into a shouting match during training camp, someone affiliated with the team. And before you ask, not someone in the front office. Exclamation point. Okay. Interesting, because I think people, myself included, have a very positive opinion of Brandon Brown. Brandon Brown seems like a guy who's with it, who just from the limited time that we've seen him speak to the press and in his time on Hard Knocks, it just seems like he's a guy that is highly coveted and honestly should be given a shot. And this is where, I know that New York Revival was talking about it on their live stream today. Like, just move on from Joe Schoen and just have Brandon Brown be the GM for the rest of the year. I don't know that he's going to be able to do a whole lot, but at least he'd be able to do something to give you kind of an indication of where his direction and vision is. And then you sit down and he's your top candidate. You don't hand him the job once the season's over, but he's a top candidate. And then you grill him on the decisions you made prior to him becoming interim GM, and then while he was interim GM. While you're interim and while you were, before you became interim GM, what decisions did you want to make and push for but weren't made because Joe shot it down? And then you were able to make them when Joe was released. And the fact that he got into a shouting match with Brian Daboll just makes him like him that much more. Because, perception right now is that Brian Daboll is the one who's fucking everything up, right? That's why he's gone and Shane has been retained, right? So it would make sense that if Brandon Brown is in a shouting match with Brian Dable's not doing the things that Brandon Brown and his team expected of him. The next tweet or post from Jason Smith, quote unquote, a certain Giants receiver who many fans call a bust. I won't say his name. I don't think he's a bust, but many think it. Had sex with a former receiver's girl last season, so 2024. Brian Daboll covered it up and it caused a huge problem in the locker room. Front office didn't know until January. So this account, we should be transparent in saying if this is a Joe Schoen burner account, obviously they're going to make Brian Daboll out to look like a jackass and to pin everything on him. So take all this with a grain of salt. But goddamn, if any of this is true, ugh. So the inference here is that Jalen Hyatt is the guy who's labeled as a wide receiver bust, and he had sex with a former receiver's girl. So is that Sterling Shepard? But that would be last season. So is it someone else? Was it someone on the team in 2024 who's not on the team now? Would that be someone like a Paris Campbell who was brought in and then not played and released? Just the way that things are handled and managed in this organization is just so awful. Like, yeah, that caused a huge problem. I mean, it's a reason why Stefon Diggs is the juice worth the squeeze for Stefon Diggs? And the Patriots took a huge risk in signing him because it's like, look at all the shit that you have to deal with in the locker room or off the field. There was just another paternity test that came out where he's knocked up some other chick besides his girlfriend Cardi B, who he's having a baby with. Whew. I mean, I like, it's so far removed from my experience. Like, I can't even get, woman. I can't even get, woman. And he's just like out there slinging dick left and right, just like a fucking blackjack dealer, just handing out penis. And I can't even, yeah. So again, that jives with, he's a player's coach, because a player's coach would do that. Would be like, we'll keep this on the down low. We'll keep this a secret. It's between us. We'll work it out amongst us, and we don't need to let the front office know, and blah, blah, blah. And is that the right approach? Maybe if it's like, neighbors and it's like your top receiver, but I don't, Lawrence Taylor, I know he got away with a lot of shit when he was in the building. But when it's your Jalen Hyatt, dude, who's not even seeing the field, who gives a fuck? Another tweet from November 4th from Jason Smith. One more thing: a certain defensive back who was a highly regarded prospect believes that Bowen lacks any sense of teaching. It's like he downloaded a playbook off Madden. He compared him to coaches from middle school. This isn't a source from the front office. So funny. I mean, this is either like an amazing troll job, which it's leaning towards that. The odds are it's just an incredible troll, a la akin to like a Wesley Steinberg, or was it a Mark Gooden with the Mets? But holy crap, dude! You have to think that that's Deontay Banks, which, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that there's like a tinge. It's not like this is so far-fetched. That's the thing about that's what keeps I gravitate towards this, because it's like it's either such a knowledgeable, informed, lifelong Giants fan that has an amazing sense of humor and who gets how to troll and be a genius online, or this is actually like leaks. So, I mean, like, yeah, Jalen Hyatt, why would I not believe that? Deontay Banks, why would I not believe that? Given how he performed his rookie season to how he's with Wink, who Wink Martindale is the reason why we traded up to get Deontay Banks, because he fits in Wink's system. You then take away Wink, you thrust Deontay Banks into this Shane Bowen system, which isn't catering to his strengths, and he's been unplayable. And it's only because of injuries that he's seeing the field. Jason Smith on November 5th. I hope when Daniel Jones retires, he recounts the time he was called the R word by a coach. Won't say who, since it's a pretty serious accusation, but DJ was called the R word by a coach. That was. I mean, can you even fathom Mike Kafka calling him the R word? No. That is Brian Daboll 1,000%. Another post from November 5th. He's another story that was covered up by the coaching staff. More than one player on defense has fallen asleep during film sessions with Shane Bowen. The person I know said this has happened more than once. He's not well liked. Only person who likes him is Daboll. Jesus. November 6th. Apparently during the 2024 draft process, the front office and coaching staff were discussing who to draft. And a coach, won't say who, didn't want a guy because the coach thought he came across as an F**********. The player was drafted anyway. Holy shit, dude. So that's the Joe Schoen burner account. It just feels there's like little tinges of truth where it's like, yeah, I could see that. Like, this is not so, a lot of the Wesley Steinberg and Mark Gooden posts are like, that have the presentation, and it looks like it could be legitimate and valid, but like fans in the know are like, yeah, obviously that's not right. That's not true. Like, we can tell. This is like, it's so out there, but it's like, I mean, I could see it given how everything has panned out and how they, like, why would we not believe that? That's why it's so believable. It's because we've seen them act up and misbehave, and it's like, yeah, this is all logical and makes sense. I can see this happening. Nothing is out of the realm of possibility with this regime. Almost 2 hours into this friggin' episode, and I didn't even get to the Bears recap. So we'll try and get through this quickly. We totaled the second most yards on offense of the season with 431 in this game. We had the second most rushing yards of the season at 169 in this game. And we had the third most passing yards through 10 games of the season, and it would have been more if Dart didn't leave at the end of the third quarter. So offensively, we came to play, and I thought, obviously it wasn't our best game, but it was one of our better games offensively, and Dart continued to impress with his ability to move and to keep the play alive and to make deadly accurate throws. I mean, Jesus, his surname is suiting him well. Defensively, despite keeping the Bears offense to 10 points through 3 quarters, still did not play that well. It was trending towards the Broncos game through 3 quarters was probably the best defensive effort we've had. Chargers was the best full complete game that we had. Broncos would have been the best complete game that we had through 4 quarters because, their offense was not as banged up as the Chargers offense. And of course we had the letdown. So crazily enough, this was our third best defensive performance out of 10 games, which should tell you enough about this defense and Shane Bowen's future. The only thing we have left to see here is now that Daboll has been fired, are Bowen and Kafka actually gonna flourish without Daboll holding them back? That's the only thing that I think the front office might be keeping an eye on is let's see how Bowen and Kafka respond and perform over the last 7 games without Daboll, having oversight. So this was the third best defensive performance through 10 games behind the Eagles Thursday night game and the Chargers game, both home games. So this was our best road performance overall. But we did allow the third most rushing yards of the season at 171. And as plenty of people have mentioned, the majority of a lot of those rushing yards came on Caleb Williams just doing Caleb Williams things and being a goddamn greased up deaf guy from Family Guy. Shout out the Clem Report for posting that gif. This is what Caleb Williams is. No one can catch him. He's slippery as fuck. It was a net negative for special teams, not a huge net negative, but and I posted this I think we all agree it's time to move on from Jamie Gillen. I don't think there's any reason to think that why are we paying him? There's no reason to keep him. There's no reason to keep Graham Gano, whoever the new GM is. Thank God. Hopefully there's a new GM. They move on from Gano and Gillen, and we just go. If you want to draft, pick up extra picks and draft someone late. One of the top priorities is let's get our special teams right. Yeah, I mean this game was over. This game was over once once Dart went down. That's basically when the game was over. And if you were still no, we're gonna win, when Daboll goes for the field goal, the 19-yard field goal from the 1, and then gets another opportunity and declines the penalty that would have give us, just for reference, just in case anyone has forgotten, a yard is 3 feet. If we accept that penalty, it goes half the distance. We're at the half-yard line. We're at 1.5 feet. We're at fucking 18 inches. You don't have confidence in your offense to get 18 inches, dude? And there have been reports from the people that were at the game or watching the game that the sideline deflates as soon as he sends the field goal unit out there. And it probably deflates even more when they're given another shot and he's able to correct that decision and go for it. And he decides, no, we're going to kick the field goal, go up by 10. Knowing full well, hey, I get it. If this is the week 2 game against the Cowboys, if this is the game against the Broncos, and you decide to kick the field goal there and you go up by 10 and you lose, I think people are maybe go a little bit easier on you, give you a little more leeway, a little more forgiving. But dude, we've been down this path, man. We've been down this path before. We're up double digits and we lose it. So you have to go up, you have to risk. You have to risk. You have to make that risk. And if you don't get it, they're on the half-yard line. There's a higher chance that you could possibly get a safety or that you pin them. You go 3 and out and you get the ball back and you're closer to their territory and you can at least, it's cowardly football. So yeah, the rush defense, somehow our pass defense didn't have a negative grade, which is wild because they gave up so many big plays. But the rush defense was even worse. It was just gash after gash after gash. We had 21 first downs, there were 23. Rushing yards were about the same. We had more passing yards. We were sacked 4 times on the day. We got 0 sacks on Caleb Williams, even though we came close at least 4 or 5 times. So there was a potential to have 4 or 5 sacks and match the number that they had, and he slipped away. He's crafty as hell, dude. It's like I've seen highlights of him. I've only watched like maybe one full game. I was half paying attention. This was the first game I was paying attention throughout it all, and it's like, all right, yeah, they got a dude. They got a guy. This is not Justin Fields 2.0. It just feels like he's more elusive, and doesn't make a lot of bonehead plays, and can, as evidenced by this. I know it's the Giants defense that just has given up time after time, but has shown that he can come back and lead your team to a come from behind win. Total yards were almost about even. We outgained them there. We have the Jackson Dart fumble that he lost. That was not a fumble. So in addition to having to try and beat the other team, we're still trying to also beat the referees. I'm sorry, but I know the screenshot game on social media is a dicey situation where it's like, but the screenshot clearly shows his knee. So he gets hit, ball pops out, but then he regains possession of the ball, right? So he gets hit on the arm, ball pops up in the air. He then corrals the ball back, gets possession of it, knee hits. He lands on the ground, ball comes out. So not a fumble. And then you have the 4th and 1 play call where it's play action. He throws to Daniel Bellinger in the end zone, and Belly. I mean, if we're going by the law of the land, the rule book, you see him catch it. He takes 1 step. He takes 2 steps. His knee hits. Then the Bears defender knocks the ball out. That's a touchdown. No? His knee hit. Catch, possession, control. 1, 2, knee hits, ball comes out. That's a touchdown. You're looking at, we lost 3 points, at least 3 points on the Jackson Dart fumble. I think the Bears go down, they kick a field goal after that. And then it was a turnover and downs on the 4th and 1 where, to be honest, it's a good throw. I would have liked to see him put it more on the line so he doesn't allow the safety to get over to make the play. I think he lofted it a bit too much, and he allowed the safety to come over to make the play to dislodge the ball. If he puts it more on a line, then Belly doesn't have to wait for it. And if he catches, maybe doesn't have to go up for the ball and get concerned about, coming down with the ball. So I think there was a better throw to be made there. It's still a good throw, not taking a lot away from it. I would have preferred he doesn't loft it or lob it there. I would have liked a little bit of a stronger throw. And, yet again, 10 penalties for 69 yards, dude. And just like really excruciating, back-breaking penalties on plays where it would have changed the momentum of the game. Dexter Lawrence had a sack that was taken away by a penalty. Abdul Carter had a sack that was taken away by a penalty. Those would have been the first full sack for each of those dudes, and instead they are check the box score. They are absent. Their names are not. I had to do a double and then a triple take to find Abdul Carter and Dexter Lawrence. I'm doing Command F, Control F, trying to find them. What happened? They're just not on the box score. They didn't make a single tackle. We were 5-14 on 3rd downs. They were 3 for 11. So, about even there. And we were both 1 for 4 on 4th down conversions. It was just a 4th down turnover on downs fest for a while. And we won out on time of possession. In terms of top plays, I mean, you can't start a game like this. Jamie Gillen kicking the ball out of bounds and giving them the ball at the fucking 40-yard line. This feels like a situation where Jamie Gillen has something going on personally, and we're not going to find out about it until later, maybe, if he ever decides to open up about it. But man, this is one of those games where you're like, are you okay, man? You good? What are you having problems at home? What's going on? Are you being blackmailed? Is someone holding your daughter for ransom? What is going on that you would come out and put on this kind of performance? Now, I understand the weather sucked, and special teams tends to suffer when it's snowing and raining and in poor weather conditions, but Jesus Christ, it's a kickoff, dude. Punting, okay. I mean, I still think back to that. I was getting flashbacks to Sean Landeta shanking a punt in the divisional round in the 85 playoffs against the Bears in Chicago, because that's how brutal the wind was. I don't know that the wind was that crazy in this game, but like him shanking the punt in the worst possible spot, dude. Like everyone knew that downfall was coming from the Giants, that collapse was incoming. We knew that was happening. We could all sense it. I can't imagine the team didn't sense it. And you shank the punt to give them unbelievably good field position. It's a 26-yard punt. And at that point, it's like, yeah. If you had your doubts after Dart went down, if you had your doubts after we kicked the field goal to go up 10, how do you have doubts that we're going to lose the game after Jamie Gillen shanks that fucking punt? I completely forgot that Dart had a little history with Caleb Williams. Dart transferred from USC to Ole Miss in 2022 after USC hired Lincoln Riley, who was bringing Caleb Williams with him from Oklahoma. So it's a little, I don't know if you call it a Jackson Dart revenge game, but you'd have to say that for the majority of this game, if not, for the entire time that Dart was in the game, that he outplayed Caleb Williams. Now, you could make the argument that Caleb Williams no one did him any favors on his side of the ball. Like in terms of his targets, a lot of drops, a lot of big plays that were missed because his receivers were not doing their part. So, but I would think that Jackson Dart got the better of Caleb Williams on this occasion. Although Caleb Williams seems to be a little bit better at escaping the sack, like sure sacks. You also, if you didn't see him, like if the coaches didn't see Jackson Dart laying on the field limp during that quote unquote fumble, you definitely saw him take a helmet to helmet contact where I think he lost a fucking tooth. Like you saw that happen in the first half and you decided, yeah, let's continue to run him. Like, yeah, he didn't run the ball as much as he usually does. Not as many designed runs as they have done in the past, but I don't know. I just think there's a better way to approach the game plan. And you could see that even though the running game struggled in the first half, it did get a lot better in the second half, and it wasn't just Dart doing it. So I understand that the run game can succeed or succeeds better when Dart is a part of the equation. That was the Dart package that was talked about in the first 2 weeks, where it's like he has at least poses the threat of pulling the ball and running. But the run game was still good once Dart left the game. This is just going to be what we have to deal with, just like Bills fans have to deal with Josh Allen putting his body on the line and posing a risk and endangering himself. Like that's just what's going to happen with Jackson Dart. The issue that I have that I've talked about nonstop with Brian Daboll is like, dude, unnecessary stuff, unnecessary. Not just this game, but going back to previous games, like unnecessary. Putting him in harm's way, unnecessary. Turning a blind eye to what is, the 49ers game, he probably had a concussion. And like in this game, how did you not know he had a concussion? And you sent him back out there. I mean, Jesus. So as much as like Brian Daboll hurt Daniel Jones, he was hurting Jackson Dart. I'm sorry, he was. I don't know who tweeted this, but they said Jackson Dart has been checked for concussions 4 times already in 7 career starts. Yikes. I mean, we're now entering like Tua territory where it's like this guy might have to retire very prematurely because he cannot stay unconcussed. And someone else tweeted there needs to be a full-on investigation for how Jackson Dart was allowed back into the game with a concussion. I wholeheartedly agree. And I would be shocked if the Giants don't get fined somehow, some way. You just cannot allow that to happen. Daboll going into the blue tent to check on Dart because he knows that Russell Wilson stinks. Hears Russell Wilson get booed after a horrible outing and then keeps him as the backup. Like, dude, what are you doing? Why did we sign Jameis Winston? I don't know. It was like the decision making is so weird. Like you have to know after what happened in that Chiefs game that Russell Wilson cannot see the field ever again, and that you either should have traded him, released him, or put him as emergency quarterback. I think if you put him as emergency quarterback, you probably would have requested a trade anyway. But then Jameis Winston is your backup after that. So why wasn't he the backup? And that is the reason the Giants lost this game. I know the defense can shoulder a lot of the brunt of the blame on this one, and they should, as does Shane Bowen. But Jesus Christ, if you're Brian Daboll, why is Jameis Winston not in the game? Why is he not your backup? Why was he not your backup week 4? And even if it's not week 4, after that, what happened in that Eagles game on Thursday night, how is Jameis Winston not your backup? You clearly have zero confidence in Russell Wilson to pick up a first down. And you still kept him as your backup. Which I don't know, it just gets your mind running about, like, what did they put in his contract? Like, he could never be the emergency quarterback, and if he is listed as emergency quarterback, he gets like $7 million. Like, what stipulation did they have in the contract that doesn't allow them, the head coach, to put him as the emergency quarterback and elevate Winston? Why even have fucking Jameis Winston? It's just like, you already have said. This is another thing that gets me. Winston, you have Winston for another year. Russell was a 1-year thing. It's like, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, okay, you move on. Winston, you signed to a 2-year deal. You've already said, or all indications point to, Winston is your backup quarterback in 2026. So why not just have that, just move up the timeline? He's now your backup in 2025. Let's see what you have. So now that you can, like, at least see what you got within this system, or within this location, within this organization, see what you have in him as a backup this year, so that if it really looks awful in this 7-game stretch when he comes in, then you don't need him as your backup in 2026. The decision making across the board is so poor. And that's coming from someone who has made all of the poor decisions. Like, pick a decision. It's all been bad that I've made. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but Jesus Christ, I feel like I could still do a better job than what Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are doing. 2:48 p.m. This is what I tweeted. This is after the Giants, after Dart scores his second touchdown. Okay. I said the Giants are now up 10 points on the Bears in the second half after Jackson Dart's second rushing touchdown of the game to make it 17-7. Surely Big Blue won't blow this lead in historic fashion. More cowardly decisions by Brian Daboll. 4th and goal from the 1 and opts for the field goal to go up from 17-10 to 20-10. Losing mentality. Penalty would have moved half the distance. We can't get half a yard. Yeah. And I know people hate analytics, but, analytics said to go for it. When you're up 7, 4th and 1 yard from the opponent's end zone with 10:19 in the fourth quarter, everyone has their timeouts. It's a plus 3% winning probability if you go for it there. So you probably have a higher chance of winning. It's 3%, not a great, huge difference, but it's 3% better of a win to win the game if you go for it than attempt the field goal. So your winning percentage, if you fail, is 81% if you go for it. Your winning percent if you kick the field goal attempt and fail is 77%. So you actually have a lower chance of winning if you miss the field goal than you do if you go for it. And you have a much higher chance of succeeding if you go for it and get it. 95% win percentage versus 86%. Giants are now 0-4 this season in games in which they led by 10 or more points on the road. So that's inclusive of Cowboys, Broncos, Bears, and then you have the Saints game, which they had the 10-point lead in the second quarter. So not in the fourth quarter, but still. That's a game where we felt like we were in fucking cruise control in that, and it just all unraveled. This graphic will never not. There are 2 graphics that I'm going to go over right here that just drive me wild. The score is 37-34. This is in Dallas. 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. We lost. We're up 14-3 midway through the second quarter against the Saints in New Orleans. It's 3rd and 12, and we lose that game. It's second, and that's coming after a big win against the Chargers. There's another version. There's an alternate timeline of this universe, of this season, where, there's one where Jackson Dart starts from the beginning, and we get probably one more win, and we're 2-1 going into that Chargers game versus 1-2. There's a situation where we don't blow the lead in Dallas. So, or like, we don't blow the lead against the Saints. Fourth quarter, 5 minutes left against the Broncos in Denver. We're up 26-8. We don't blow that. And then up 20-10 here, and we don't blow that. So that's 4 games. I'm not gonna sit here and say dude, we should win those games. I'm sorry. We should win all 4 of those games. Yeah. So we shouldn't be 2-8. We should be 6-4. And if we're 6-4, Daboll still has his job, and we're talking about a playoff push, a playoff run, and you have to have a little more confidence in. You can maybe ignore what Joe Schoen has done to this team, but against the Cowboys, Broncos, and Bears, the Giants had a 92.3%, 99.3%, and 96.9% chance of winning late in the fourth quarter. And Brian Daboll's team lost all of them. The odds of that happening is 1 in 60,000. I mean, how many historically bad statistics have come out of the Brian Daboll regime? Crazy, unbelievable statistics that happened under Brian Daboll, and I'm putting it out because I don't know that any other NFL head coach has ever experienced any of that in less than 4 years of head coaching. Oh, boy. I mean, you look at these win probability graphs. Oh, my God, dude. It is just unreal. Even the Niners game, dude. Like, we talked about Cowboys, Saints, Broncos, Bears. Even that Niners game, we had a 78.8% chance of winning about halfway through the first quarter. 96.9% win probability against the Bears in the fourth quarter. That was with 5 minutes and 35 seconds left in the fourth quarter. We had a 96.9% chance of winning. And I feel like saying to this graph, like, dude, I mean, I knew when we went for the field goal. When we went up 20-10 with the field goal, I knew we were going to lose. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen own the record for the longest losing streak in Giants history at 10. They now, Daboll and Schoen now also own the longest road losing streak in Giants history at 11. Lawrence Tynes, this is before Brian Daboll was fired. He said, give Kafka a 7-game run as head coach to see what he's got. He's been a finalist on more than one occasion in the last couple of hiring cycles. The Daboll-Schoen experiment has had 4 seasons. Yeah, and now we're going to see it. And I'll tell you what, I'm not it's not like I think that we're going to go undefeated under Kafka. But you have to think that in these situations, if we ever encounter another situation like this, which who knows, because I think at this point, when your head coach is fired, the players are like, and if he's such a player's coach, the players might rebel and really not give a shit and not play hard. I hope that's not the case. But if Kafka, like, I'm not imagining he goes undefeated during this, but if he wins more than 2 games, that's more than Brian Daboll can say. In 10 games, if he wins 3 games and 7 chances, that's better than 2 out of 10. But I would like to think, and I would like to believe that if we ever do get in another situation like this, it will win the game. Like, we're not going to lose the game. We're not going to blow it. We're not going to collapse. And that's my hope for Mike Kafka. Of course, the running theme and the thread between all this losing is Tim McDonald, Tim McDonald's in his 12th season with the Giants, 4th as the team's director of player personnel. And this basically aligns with the same stretch, that this slump that we've been in since 2013. So, coincidence? And I saw someone post after Joe Judge was fired and John Mara had his press conference. There were it might have been Dan Duggan, but there were reporters asking, like, what's up with Chris Mara and Tim McDonald, because they're all family. They're in-law or nephew, whatever. They're in the Mara family. And, like, are they being held accountable? Like, how much influence do they have over everything? Because we're just connecting the dots here. From an outsider's perspective, our downfall started in 2013, and that's when they started. So, like, since they've been a bigger part of the organization, and they got promoted, which is, man, dude, as someone who has not had a job for longer than a year in a long time, and who has been lost his job to mass layoffs because of mass layoffs in 3 of the last 4 positions. I've been part of, on the wrong end of mass layoffs like 5 or 6 times now. So things that are, I guess, outside my control. It's like, it's not just me. It's like you're laying off 50, 200 people. Knowing that, and even during those mass layoffs, not being down on myself, because it's like, well, I did everything I could, and the results are there. Like I can point to all the results that are positive for this company, and it just fell short of, I guess, whatever kind of forecast or expectations they had, which I was not privy to a lot of the time. But like I outperformed, and I provided more value than I was being paid. I know that for a fact. Like maybe I wasn't the best in terms of relationship building and working with people in that sense, but if you look at just the cold hard numbers, you asked me to improve this and increase this, and I did. The ability to suck at your fucking job and get promoted is so foreign to me. It's just so foreign. And man, would I love to have that happen to me, where it's just like I'm consistently just messing up and mistake after mistake and mistake. And it's like, you know what, man? How would you like a new title? A better title and more pay and a bonus. It's just like, whoa, okay, that'd be cool. So, of course, I put out that last episode I talked about, and I've talked about it in more than one episode, but last week's episode I talked about Darius Slayton. I called him out yet again. I was like, listen, I used to be your biggest supporter, and I'm so disappointed in you, and you have a C on your chest. You're captain, and this is how you're performing. You got a big contract, and this is how you're rewarding us. And then he goes out and makes like the catch of his career in the snow. Can't make a catch when it's 70 degrees and perfectly sunny, no clouds, no or precipitation. But like when it's snowing and fucking frigid and windy, he comes up with a one-handed grab that is like rivaling OBJ's. He has that catch at the end of the first quarter that was huge. And then he has another catch at the beginning of the second quarter for 38 yards. And then he has another catch on a 3rd and 6. He goes for 16. So he had like, 3 catches for 85 yards in that span. And then he hurts his hamstring. So it's like, I like to think that I lit a fire under his ass, and he saw my short video that I put out there and responded accordingly, and then he hurt his hamstring. Of course he did. He had one more catch for 4 yards after that. So who knows if he plays in this upcoming game against the Packers. But second quarter, 3rd and 11 at the Chicago 29. Dart goes right tackle for 18 yards, and they throw a flag on Belly, Daniel Bellinger, for that illegal block above the waist or whatever bullshit they called on that, which I disagree with. I mean, like, it's there has to be some kind of rule in place where, like, if the defender turns their back on you, like, that's just such an easy move by the defender. I don't know why defenders don't do that more often. Like, if you have a guy cracking back on you or blocking from the side, just turn your shoulders. Just turn your shoulders to the side and present your back to them, and you will get the flag. So I think that was a bad call. And it ultimately killed us because of what happened afterwards. So Dart gets the first down on 3rd and 11. The penalty brings it back, so then it makes it a 3rd and 3. So it's basically like they take 18, subtract 8 or 10, right? So it's only a gain of 8. So that makes it 3rd and 3. Singletary goes left tackle for 2 yards, so it's 4th and 1. And then this is when Dart has the play action toss to Belly that is ruled incomplete, even though it was a touchdown. And then that means you go up 14-7 and instead of turnover and downs. So you're looking at, you lost 3 points on this Jackson Dart fumble that was not a fumble, and you lose 7 points on the Daniel Bellinger touchdown that was not a touchdown. So that's 10 points. You do the math. 20 plus 10 is 30. They score 24. We win. Add into it that you probably should have gone for it instead of kicking the field goal. You're looking at another 7 points. So it could have been 37-24. I mean, the points that are being left on the table because of referees and poor coaching is just shiver me timbers. I don't know if this was the play that was the big gainer or not. I think it is. But towards the end of the first half, there's like less than a minute. It was 3rd and 3 from the Giants' 40. It scores tied. Dart evades the rush, goes to his right, and he throws an absolute laser beam to Theo Johnson down the sideline, where Theo did actually a really great job because he was covered, but then as Dart is scrambling, Theo sees that his defender is looking to the quarterback and not paying attention to him. So he kind of creates separation by going a little bit, just fading ever so slightly up the field. So he didn't just continue directly towards the sideline. He kind of took an angle towards the end zone, and Dart picks up on that and threw an absolute bullseye to Theo Johnson. And Theo does a great job. Theo was another guy that I threw shade at. He caught a ricochet in that Darius Slayton clip that I put out there for not catching balls, and then he comes up. Of course, he's catching balls in fucking horrific weather. So he comes down with the catch, toe drag swag there, which was really impressive. And I think he had another tough catch in the game as well. And then Dart almost. It's of course, I'm like the king of jinxes. I try to do reverse cons, but the king of jinxes. I mean, like I put out the clip about Theo and Darius not catching balls. They go out and they're catching everything. I immediately post after that throw to Theo. I was like, the Giants are going to win multiple Super Bowls with Jackson Dart. And as soon as I post that, Dart almost throws a very easy interception in the end zone. and Gunnar Olszewski is able to punch it out, doing the old Peanut Tillman special, punching out the ball, which maybe we should put him at cornerback because our corners don't do that. It's like I can't remember the last time a corner has actually stripped the ball once it's in the receiver's hands. It just feels like the D-backs are not doing that anymore. So I saw someone say we should probably have Deonte Banks returning kicks and punts, and then Gunnar Olszewski at D-back. I was like, you know what? Fuck it, why not? And I know this doesn't have any bearing or matter that much, but if there were a little more time on the clock, this could have been devastating. With 3 seconds left on the clock, Jamie Gillen kicks off the ball and it lands short of the landing zone, and that's a penalty, and it brings the ball to the Chicago 40. So it was only 3 seconds left. If there's 10 seconds left, it's possible that you just know that Caleb's going to complete a pass over the middle. They'll call timeout and they'll kick a field goal. And it's like it's 10-10 now instead of being 10-7. So luckily that it doesn't come back to burn us. But at that point, it's like, okay, no more. Thank you. And shockingly, Brian Daboll actually made a change at halftime. So we come out, we get the ball in the second half. Deonte Banks has a great return for 39 yards. It's like one of the only things that he's been good at this year is returning the ball. We get a nice pass complete short right to Wan'Dale for 7 yards on a 3rd and 5. Great conversion. Tyrone Tracy goes off left guard for 16 yards for a nice first down on 2nd and 6. And then you had the Jackson Dart scramble, a design run to the left, which I couldn't believe how wide open that was for the touchdown to go up 17-7. We then had on a 4th and 1, Jackson Dart goes right in for 10 yards to pick up the first down and put us into Chicago territory in the 3rd quarter. And then the 2nd and 6 is from the Chicago 28 is when he gets hit. He gets the concussion and he fumbles the ball, and that's when everything went to shit. So again, not a fumble. Should not have played the next series. He did come out and play the next series with 34 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. So you're looking at that fumble happened with 5 minutes and 13 seconds left in the 3rd quarter, and he came back and was playing with less than a minute left in the 3rd quarter. So you're looking at there was a 5 minutes of game time, not real time, but just game time, where who is evaluating him, who is looking at him, who is talking to him, and how long? Why does it take you that long to figure it out? I mean, I just watched A House of Dynamite on Netflix, where a nuclear missile has been launched and is heading towards a major metropolitan area in the United States, and they have 16 minutes to figure it out. How they're going to respond, how they're going to measure, like counterattack strategy. You have all kinds of people involved. We're going to send up this missile. Okay, that worked. Okay, what's our options here? Here are their options. There's a whole playbook. what the fuck was going on from the time that he's on the ground limp and you lose the ball to the time that he goes back on the field. Like, who is talking to him? Who is interacting with him? No one decides that, like, hey, this is not right. Let's not do this. And you have to think that if you have a better fucking backup quarterback other than Russell Wilson, you feel way more confident in pulling him and making sure he's safe. But because Russell Wilson is your backup quarterback, you're forcing Dart back on the field. And you might say, oh, that seems a bit extreme, Neal. I don't believe that. It's subconsciously it's there. You saw it in the Thursday night game against the Eagles where Daboll's like trying to force the medical staff to hurry up and get through their evaluation because he has zero faith in Russell Wilson. So you don't think they're putting Dart back out there even though they know he's not 100% because they don't believe in Russell Wilson? Then why the fuck is Russell Wilson your backup quarterback? Oh. You know, he even completed a pass while he was concussed. We're at our own 20, 1st and 10. He throws to Wan'Dale Robinson, and it doesn't go anywhere because it's such a stupid play call. But you have a penalty on Ray McLeod for offensive pass interference, and you have a penalty on Andrew Thomas for ineligible downfield. So, and then that's when, after that quarter ends, that's when they put in Russell Wilson when there was zero explanation from the broadcast team. I mean, it took them fucking forever to figure that out. No one could identify, like, oh, Russell Wilson's in the game. We have no idea why Jackson Dart's not in the game. It took them way too long to get to the bottom of that, which makes me think that the Giants were non-compliant and were trying to cover something up. That's what that conspiracy brain comes out when I think about that. It's like, and when you listen to Brian Daboll's press conference in the post game, don't watch it, first of all, because you will get depressed beyond all belief. It was horrific to watch. It was sad to watch. But he came up with like 3 different reasons. He's like, he didn't know what play it happened on. I'm the one who told the staff to check him out, or no, other coaches, blah, blah, blah. Like he's dancing around the issue, and he, as Pat Leonard has said, and I know Pat Leonard has a target on Brian Daboll's forehead and is like, basically creating the narrative to make Brian Daboll look as bad as possible, and Joe Schoen. Like, your story kept changing during that press conference, and you kept like, it's malpractice. It's a liability to have him as head coach because he's doing all these things that are super shady and are risking the health and safety of your players. So, Russell Wilson was just so bad. On 3rd and 1, he throws short to Devin Singletary. I don't know how it's possible. You have 1 yard to gain, and he threw it short of the yard to gain. Short of the yard to gain for 1st down. On a 3rd and 1, he threw short to Devin Singletary, who just made a play. This is not, unfortunately, this goes under Russell Wilson's stat line, but Devin's able to shake the tackle and pick up massive yards, 41 yards on that play. And then, this is where it's almost an exact repeat of what we saw in the Commanders game and the Chiefs game, where it's 4th. We're goal to go inside the fucking 5, and we cannot punch it in because Russell Wilson's he's just lost it, man. He doesn't know what he's looking at. He doesn't know how to make decisions down there. It's 3rd and 2. There's 11 minutes left in the game. We're up by 7. Russell Wilson drops back. He has a guy that is kind of get an open crosser to the right, decides not to look. He decides not to. He just focuses on the pass rush. He does not look at any of his options, and he thinks he's going to take off and scramble. He picks up a yard, and then Daboll trots out Younghoe Koo. Too many men on the field, declined. And I was like, yep, cowardly decision. We're going to lose this game. Then you have Gillen having the 26-yard shank. And then you have a 4th and 10 with under a minute to play. This is after the Bears took the lead 24-20. We're at our own 46, right? Bears are playing soft prevent defense. Like, they're all playing behind the yard to gain for the 1st down. The sticks are 10 yards away. They're playing 11 yards away. You have a guy like Wan'Dale's wide open, and he's not able to get him the ball, and we lose the game. So I don't understand how, like, Mike Kafka, you have been handed an easy decision that will win you so many points with the fan base right on a platter. Jameis Winston's your starter. Russell Wilson's your backup. It is that simple. Just make that move and you will have everyone in your corner. WBG 84 posted Jackson Dart is the first rookie quarterback in NFL history with more than 1,400 passing yards, more than 300 rushing yards, and more than 15 or more total touchdowns through his first 7 career starts. Dart became the first quarterback in NFL history with a touchdown run in 5 consecutive games, breaking a tie with Cam Newton, who did it in 2011. And Anthony Rivardo posted that Jackson Dart has 7 rushing touchdowns through his first 7 starts. That ties former Panthers MVP Cam Newton for the most rushing touchdowns by any rookie quarterback in their first 7 games. Jordan Renan posted that lost amidst the chaos and the eventual concussion on Sunday was that Jackson Dart was tremendous, both running and throwing. His completion percentage over expectation was plus 4%. The other 2 quarterbacks to play in the game, Caleb Wilson and Russell Wilson, were each close to negative 14%. Dart also had 5 carries for 60 yards and 2 scores. That's actually incorrect. He had 6 carries for 66 yards and 2 scores. He completed 11 of his first 12 passes for 146 yards and finished 19 of 29 for 242. He had a 91.5 QB rating. Russell Wilson was 3 of 7 for 45 yards. Holy shit. You take away the 41-yarder to Singletary, that means he was he was 2 of 6 for 4 yards, bro. Holy macaroni. 64.6 QB rating, and if you take away that pass that was legitimately all Devin Singletary's doing, I can't imagine him having above a 30 quarterback rating. But Tyrone Tracy had 14 carries, 71 yards. Motor had 8 carries, 20 yards, 3 catches, 53 yards. Darius Slayton, 4 catches on 4 targets, 89 yards. Theo Johnson, 7 catches on 8 targets, 75 yards. The 7 catches and 75 yards for Theo Johnson were both career highs. Wendell Robinson caught 6 balls and 11 targets for 62 yards. Again, we're sitting here and those numbers look good-ish. I think it rivals a lot of wide receiver ones in terms of targets. Targets for sure. Just the yards are not there, and I don't know. Belly had a 1 catch for 8 yards on 2 targets. Should have had 2 and a touch. I also saw, Bobby Skinner was very critical of the team for having Gunnar Olszewski being their outside wide receiver instead of Jordan Humphrey. I also think that it's banana land that you are going to bring in Ray McLeod and start him over little Jordan Humphrey, who has shown some promise. And yeah, goddamn. I don't. Are they just being cheap? Like, little Jordan Humphrey gives you a boost. Okay, maybe doesn't have a great second game against the Broncos, but like, is that enough to make you decide, okay, we got to bring in Raymond McLeod now? And it's like, I don't know. Now Gunnar is your guy on the outside. It's just really questionable decision making. Anthony Rivardo said Jackson Dart has more rushing touchdowns so far this season than Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Kyron Williams, Ashton Genty, and Rico Dowdle, which is out of control, dude. Giants running backs only gained 2 yards and 8 rushes in the first half, but obviously came alive in the second half. So, on defense, it's just, we're sturdy on 4th downs. Like we mentioned, 1 of 4 on 4th downs. The Dexter Lawrence sack gets wiped out by Cordell Flott's defensive holding. It just seemed like every time there was a big 3rd down, 3rd and long, Caleb's converting on a big pass down the middle. And, why is Brian Burns in coverage instead of rushing the quarterback? Who knows? I don't know. We should not be getting this cute and creative on defense. It should be just bring your top pass rushers and try to bring an extra blitzer that they don't see coming. Something that I loved about Wink was like he was not afraid to bring a corner or safety from the backside. And maybe you don't get a sack, but at least you get more pressure. And I don't know. But Swift was running wild. And Colston Loveland had a sick catch down the middle, down the stretch there. It was just like unbelievable fingertip fingertip catch. First and 10 at the Giants 29, 2 minutes left in the third. Caleb throws a pass to Rome Odunze, and you get pass interference on Deonte Banks. So it's like, while Deonte Banks wasn't getting like torched, and I guess the numbers against him aren't that bad, it's just like you're hurting the ball club, dude. You're hurting the ball club more than you're helping. We got the 3rd and 1. The fourth quarter, we had a nice stand. This is where I thought, like, okay, maybe we're not going to lose this game. There was just a little inkling of hope once this happened. But we had a 3rd and 1 from the Chicago 45, and DeAndre Swift goes right in for -2 yards, tackled by Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who had his best game as a Giant. He hasn't suited up for a lot of games with the Giants, but this was his best game by far. And it's like, if he could only have stayed healthy this entire time, how different this fucking defense would have been through 10 weeks, because he really played out of his mind during this game. Same about Micah McFadden. Like, if you don't lose Micah McFadden, is this season different? Are we not losing and blowing these games late when it comes down to the wire? And then 4th and 3, the very next play from the Chicago 43, we get off the field with a nice pass and complete for DeAndre Swift. But then here's where it goes haywire. 5 minutes, 29 seconds, 3rd and 10 from Chicago 26. Caleb Williams pass complete deep left to Colston Loveland for 20 yards. That might have been the catch where he was like, he made it by the fingertips, going back, contorting his body back to make the catch. And then 2nd and 10 from the Giants 49. Caleb Williams pass complete deep middle to Rome Odunze for 18 yards, tackled by Andrew Phillips. 1st and 10 with 4 minutes, 28 seconds. The Giants 31. Williams scrambles left for 29 yards. And that was like, oh, yeah, we're done. And then it was all, that's like, that combined with the shank, it was like, yep, it's all adding up. Brian Burns had 4 tackles, a QB hit, tackle for loss, and a pass defender in the first half alone, and then he kind of went quiet in the second half. Bears racked up 170 rushing yards on 2 touchdowns, 28 carries. So Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, DFF, had 7 combined tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss, and a QB hit. Tyler Nubin had 7 combined tackles, but it's just, Tyler Nubin is trending towards bust territory, where it's like, dude, you were a ball hawk in college. I assume we're not using you in the right way, and that's why you're not putting up the numbers that you were putting up in college. But god damn, man, it's like, can we get a interception? Can we get a pass breakup? Can we get a forced fumble? Javon Holland had a pass breakup and 6 combined tackles. Karake had 6 combined tackles, 5 of which were assists. So, Deonte Banks, 5 combined tackles. Brian Burns, we talked about his monster first half. He didn't do much of anything in the second half. He actually got put on his ass by the right tackle on that one long scramble by Caleb Williams. Roy Robinson Harris, 5 combined tackles. So, and again, Dex and Abdul absent. Caleb finished 20 of 36, 220 yards, and a touchdown with a rating of 83.1. He did have 8 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. So that's where you're getting the inflated running numbers from DeAndre Swift, 13 carries, 80 yards. Rome Odunze, 6 catches on 10 targets, 86 yards and a touchdown. Colston Loveland, 4 catches on 4 targets, 55 yards. Luther Burden, 3 catches on 3 targets, 51 yards. DJ Moore was held catchless, and he actually got hurt and left the game. The Giants have now allowed 75 fourth quarter points in their past 4 games. That is amazing, dude. That is amazing. Can you imagine giving up 75 points in a game? In a game. That's what we've done collectively in the fourth quarter over the past 4 games. 4 quarters, 75 points. That is wild, dude. That is wild. Ugh. So I would imagine that Shane Bowen might not have a long leash. But like with Shane Bowen, it's, you fire Daboll, Kafka can be interim head coach. You fire Bowen, it's like you're going to put Dre Patterson as your defensive coordinator. He doesn't seem like he's doing much. So I understand why they haven't fired Bowen yet. It's just like we just don't have any other good internal options. But I don't know. You feel like a a regime or an organization that is just sick and tired of the bullshit would just be like, you know what, fuck it, peace, and we'll figure it out. So that's the Bears game. Packers preview. Packers are 5-2-1. They probably should be 5-3. Giants are obviously 2-8. Should be. I mean, the expected win-loss according to Pro Football Reference is 4-6. I have them at 6-4, but this is a 1:00 game on Sunday at MetLife. The Packers are favored by 8.5 according to Vegas. The over/under is 44.5. I would have probably taken the Packers if Daboll was still head coach. Now that Kafka's coach, I'm willing to take the Giants on that 8.5 spread. I'd imagine that would move closer to the Giants. Over/under is 44.5. I would think that would go under, but I've been so bad at over/unders this year and the spreads. So just do the opposite of what I say, and you should get some money. Because like Packers have a great defense. Maybe that Daboll's gone. Bowen shows some balls and is like, I'm next, so let's let our freak flag fly. Let's get after it. And so maybe the defense steps up, and I would imagine that Winston is a quarterback. If Daboll's the coach and Russell Wilson's the quarterback, we're not going to score more than 10 points. But now that Winston could be quarterback and Kafka's the head coach, 24-20, I would still take the under, but who am I? Head-to-head, the Packers lead the series 34-28 with 2 ties. Looking back over the past however many matchups since our Super Bowl victory in the 2011 season, it's been split. Or no, we actually have the advantage, 4-3 since our second Super Bowl win. So we won in December of 2012, 38-10, and we won again in 2013, but that was against the backup quarterback. Rodgers was hurt, so we won that 27-13. We then lost in 2016 at Green Bay, 23-16, and then we obviously lost in the wild card matchup. That was after the infamous boat picture. We lost 38-13, despite even with all the drops we had from our wide receivers, we were still in that game, for most of the first half. 2019, we lost 31-13 at home at Green Bay. In London, we win 27-22, and then at home against the Packers on Monday night with Tommy DeVito starting, we won 24-22. This season, the Packers had the big week 1 win over the Lions at home. They allowed a season low in rushing yards in that first game. They had another dominant win at home against the Commanders in week 2. It was the best game for their defense. And, everyone was basically crowning the Packers at that point, saying like they are the Super Bowl favorites. And then when they go into week 3 and they have a loss in Cleveland to the Browns and Joe Flacco, they had the lowest total yards allowed by the defense, but a season low in total yards, passing yards, and first downs for the offense. So, and that's a really tremendous, awesome Browns defense, where it's like if they just had any semblance of an offense, they would be at least 500 at this point. So you can understand why Myles Garrett is pissed. They then go and have the overtime tie in Dallas. Offense had 32 first downs, which was a season high, 489 total yards, which was a season high, and 164 rushing yards, which was the best of their season so far. It was their best game offensively. But their defense also allowed a season high in total yards, passing yards, and first downs. It was their worst game defensively, which makes sense. They then get an early bye week in week 4, come out and beat the Bengals at home in week 6 against, Joe Burrow was not playing at this point. It was Browning. Then they barely beat, I think that was Jake Browning, or was Flacco with the Bengals at the time? No, I think it was Browning. So they beat the Bengals pretty decisively at home in week 6. They then barely skate by the Cardinals at Arizona in week 7. Beat the Steelers decisively in Pittsburgh in primetime week 8. Their offense puts up 454 total yards with a season-high 360 passing yards. It was their second best game offensively. They follow that up with a brutal loss at home to the Panthers in week 9. The Panthers are just wacky. I don't even know what to make of the Panthers. I think they ended up losing in week 10. Did they lose in week 10? Maybe not. Packers had a season high in turnovers on offense. It was only 2. And they also had a season high of rushing yards on allowed on defense despite a season low in passing yards allowed. They only allowed 102 passing yards in that Week 9 loss to the Panthers, and then they have their Monday night game against the Eagles tonight. I'm recording on Monday, November 10th, the day after my birthday. And what a gift I received from the Giants. Another blown lead and collapse, but then it ends in a firing. So happy birthday to me. All right, so the Packers are 2-1-1 on the road. We're 2-2 at home. They are 11th in points scored per game and 9th in points allowed per game. They're about average in takeaway differential. 6th in passing yards per game, 20th in rushing yards per game. We actually have a better rushing attack than they do. We're 11th in rushing yards per game. And then they're 11th in defensive passing yards allowed per game and 2nd in defensive rushing yards per game. So I would imagine that this is like one of our taller orders for the offense. We've gone up against a suspect Bears defense that's somewhat vulnerable and porous. We've gone up against a banged up, depleted 49ers defense, no Bosa, no Warner, and only scored 20. We only scored 20 against the Bears defense that was like bottom half of the league. We're now going up against one of the best defenses. So, and I would be really pissed off if we decide to shove Jackson Dart out there. Just let him rest. Let's get him 100% healthy, get him fully cleared for the following game and against the Lions in Detroit. I'd rather have him fully healthy 100% against Detroit than I would thrusting him out there against the Packers defense that is just chomping at the bit. So Jameis Winston, have fun with that. Yeah, so it's could be ugly, but who knows how this team responds? Most teams, I think it happened with the Chargers too. It's just like the Chargers, I forget what season it was, but before they hired Jim Harbaugh, they fire Brandon Staley, I think it was, and then they come out and drop like 54 or something like that on the Raiders. I think that's how that went down. So who knows how the coaching change affects, if Daboll's really this player's coach that everyone pretends he is, then I guess the team will revolt, right? And be like, yeah, no, you can't believe you took our guy, and then play like absolute dog shit. But, it'll be interesting. So, if they come out and win this game, it's like, oh boy, oh boy. I don't see it happening, but I do think the chances, as slim as they are better with Jameis Winston as your quarterback and instead of Russell Wilson, and with Mike Kafka as your head coach instead of Brian Daboll. That's how much I detest and dislike that Daboll-Russell Wilson combination. In terms of the remaining schedule for the 2025 Giants after this Packers game in Week 10, we go to Detroit. Detroit is now 6-3, second in the NFC North. I guess I don't know if they would go to first if the Packers lose to the Eagles tonight, because the Packers beat the Lions in Week 1. So I'm not. There might be a tie. I don't know what happens there, but that. Oh boy, that's gonna be it's gonna be scary going into Detroit, facing a Lions team that is just pissed off, and. After that, we have the Monday night game in New England against the Patriots, who just look, they're 8-2, first in the AFC East, and they look like they're just firing on all cylinders, and they look like they're just about to go on a run. And then we get our bye week. And then we face like easier, dare I say, the easiest part of our schedule. Home game against the Commanders, who are 3-7 and third in the NFC East, and Daniels has had that bad injury late in the game that might have ended his season. I don't know if he's going to come back. It was like a dislocated elbow, non-throwing. So we'll probably face Marcus Mariota in that game, so I feel good about our chances there. You then go have a home game against the Vikings, who are 4-5, fourth in the NFC North, and just lost the Ravens. And, I don't know that I necessarily believe in J.J. McCarthy, so that could be a win. And then you go to Vegas to play the 2-7 Raiders, who are, they're currently 2-7. They're last in the AFC West, and they don't seem like they got their act together. Just traded away Jacoby Myers, so that could be a win. And then you play the Cowboys, who are currently 3-5-1, but they have that 10-point loss to Jacoby Brissett in Arizona. They then had the bye week this week, and then they go to the Raiders. So it's very possible that the Cowboys won't be in playoff contention, even after getting Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. So you're looking at it's still there to get 4 wins to end the season, and you end up 6-11 at worst. And if you find a way to beat this, I don't know. I can't see us pulling out any wins, especially on the road. So I think if you're gonna get that 7th win, this is the time to do it against a Packers team that maybe thinks that we're in shambles and underestimates us and Mike Kafka and Jameis Winston. So anyway, that's the episode. Thanks for sticking with me through all the jitters from my 3rd cup of coffee today to try and get out of this funk and this fog that I've been in, having not been able to sleep and just questioning everything as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and being like, why am I unemployed for almost 2 years and Brian Daboll still has a job and Shane Bowen still has a job and Joe Schoen still has a job? But yeah, thanks for sticking with me. And I was at the point where I was like, I really need to dial back these episodes in terms of like the amount of time and effort I put into it, because like, why spend all the time and effort into this team? I'm spending more time and effort into the team than the head coaches. I know that's not obviously a joke, but it's like, why am I dedicating so much of my life? Like, I knew it's just, I'm a crazy person, because why would I dedicate watching this team knowing that they're going to lose and blow leads and have to talk about it for hours on end? Like, why would I do that? And it's like, I knew it was coming. I knew we were going to blow the 10-point lead, and yet I still got upset. And it still bugged me for hours. I mean, that game ended at 4:15, 4:20, somewhere around there. And I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning, just like, I cannot believe that Russell Wilson's our backup, that we didn't go for the touchdown, that wasn't ruled a fumble. It's just like, you just keep going over and over and over. I cannot believe we're allowing this to happen. But at least 1 down, 1 more to go in terms of moves that have to happen, amongst many moves that need to happen. I do think there are more moves to come. That's why the wording on that report, where it's like, no expected move, no further expected moves at this time. It's like, hey, everyone can still mess up. Everyone can still do something to get to be handed their papers. So again, I am for moving on from Joe Schoen, and Shane Bowen. And I really do think if you're so worried about being able to try to find the next guy, like when Ray Perkins went back to college football in '82, Parcells was the defensive coordinator. The defense was carrying the team, and they made him head coach. So it's like, if Kafka was so close to getting the Seahawks head coach job, which the Seahawks they made the right decision. I mean, 8-2, and it looks like they are going toe to toe with the Rams to win the NFC West with Mike McDonald. So they made the right decision. But the fact that he was so close to getting that job, maybe you do have something in Mike Kafka, and we just haven't seen it yet. I mean, we saw it at the Senior Bowl. I know that's not a great litmus test or barometer, but the way that he coached there was inspiring. And you just got to move on from Shane Bowen, unless Shane Bowen excels. I know it's like, listen, I know percentages are low, but if he comes out and shines without Daboll, it's like Daboll really was the problem. And then Shane, you move on from Shane, and then I would take a real hard look at Brandon Brown. Brandon Brown, just like Kafka, heavily pursued and coveted by other teams, and probably could have gone somewhere else, but decided to stay here. So let's give him a shot. Don't be, just because it hasn't worked the past 3 or 4 times when you let people go, it doesn't mean you stop doing it. You got to keep going until you find it. All right, it's enough of me. No more me. Less me. Next up will be I'm going to try and get the Superman review and Peacemaker season 2 reviews out. I just saw Predator Badlands, which was awesome. Highly recommend. Probably, it's hard to say the best Predator movie, but it's like a close second. There's the original Predator, 87, and then there's this. So that's how good it is. And I wish it just was getting more, I don't know, buzz, publicity, because it is worth watching. A very good movie. So I'll be reviewing Predator Badlands after Superman and Peacemaker season 2, along with Alien Romulus, Prey, and Alien Earth. I'm going to try and combine all that into one neat, tidy package, which will probably go for 4 hours. So that's the episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.